Got 106 miles to Chicago, a full tank of gas, a half pack of cigarettes. It's dark out, and we're wearing sunglasses.
The Blues Brothers.
Hit it. You're supposed to say hit it.
Oh,
If you know,
it.
you know. Wow.
Hit it.
All right. What's up, y'all? Sorry we're a little late. We were supposed to start at 7. I had a little issue with my timing in terms of leaving Great America, which is up in Gurnee, Illinois. So I was panic emailing Mark. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be like 7:30, but I was able to. Allie went to Waze, and we were able to make up about a half an hour. So we're only 5 minutes late, and we're thrilled to be here. I am Bob Mata. I am the host of Defense Diaries, and I am joined by my beautiful and brilliant co-host, Allie. What's up, girl?
Hey, babe. Hey, all.
All right, y'all. Let's bring him on. Let's not keep the man waiting. He's doing the rounds. I know he was hanging with Andy Bev like before he got over here. So let's bring him in, see what's going on. What's up, my friend?
How are you? That was like the most Chicago opening. I'm obviously an East Coast person, and you're sitting there in your Bears hat talking about Gurnee, Illinois, and telling Blues Brothers jokes. That's just.
And then I fucked the punchline. So
She fucked up the. Hey, just remember, I hate Illinois Nazis. So look, man, it's all in the books, but for the summations, what's your gut? Your gut on this thing coming out pre summations, because I think we'll talk about the summations, but where are you feeling we're at coming out of close of evidence?
Well, I mean, juries are juries, as we all know, so any prediction is just lawyer exercise and having fun, and people are interested. But I mean, if you were looking at this just from a straight evidentiary standpoint and putting aside jury issues, it's over. I mean, this is as open and shut acquittal as it gets, with that caveat of we're lawyers and what we think doesn't matter. It matters what the jurors say. But there is so much reasonable doubt here that, I mean, for 100 different reasons, which I'm sure we can talk about in a few minutes. But I mean, this is, I would not want to be, well, I wouldn't want to be Brennan for a lot of reasons. But certainly going into the summation, he did not deliver what he, what he promised. Not even close.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I had wanted to do, I was actually planning on it today after the instruction conference. I was going to go back actually, and I wanted to replay both opening statements by Alan as well as by Brennan, just to kind of see what they laid out and what they had promised the jury to see, you know, where the gaping holes were for either side. You know, I mean, I think at some point, you know, the defense team decided, you know what, we're going to take the pedal off. We're going to take the foot off the pedal a little bit with the conspiracy stuff.
Babe, are you on your Wi-Fi instead of your Ethernet? No. Okay, sorry.
Oh, wait, I am actually. Why, am I choppy?
No, but it was showing me like your Wi-Fi signal, and for a second I couldn't. Okay, so
I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna switch over.
All right, and Bob meant that he was on anti-Dev.
So I might dip for a second.
Not anti-Bev.
Big difference.
Yeah.
All right, am I back?
You're back, but you're still showing on Wi-Fi. Old head.
There, it worked. I'm glad you mentioned that. No, I forgot to get back. Yeah, you know, but what I was saying is, you know, it seemed like they at some point decided to take the foot off the pedal or the gas in terms of, you know, kind of pursuing the conspiracy angle, which, you know, frankly, from my perspective, Mark, I was thrilled with. You know, I had been saying for a long time, I get how that's an alluring thing to get into, but in terms of walking Karen out of that courtroom, especially, and whether Ronnie was full of shit or not, whether he was really a guilty vote or not, I really don't care. In terms of the things he was saying, it was our ability to be able to kind of get a glimpse into what was going on in that jury room, and, you know, kind of what they were thinking. And to me, if you can keep it simple, for the jurors, and you have the ability to be able to just dismantle the Commonwealth's case the way that they were able to, just by using the science, then as far as I'm concerned, that's the move. But that being said, when you're Alan Jackson prepping for this, just monumental closing tomorrow, how much are you digging into the Brian Higgins, specifically kind of that issue in your closing, in light of how much or how little the jury heard about that guy?
I think you got a look into that today when they were talking about it at the charge conference, where they acknowledge it's really not about third-party culprit with Brian Higgins. It's about the failure to investigate, and Brian Higgins is the poster child of suspicious behavior that warranted some degree of intellectual curiosity or investigation by the police. So I think they're going to use the Higgins example just to further how much tunnel vision the police had, how awful the investigation was, and how they ignored red flags with him. And they don't have to accuse him of anything other than saying he had some degree of a motive. He was acting like really suspicious in the bar. His text messages with both Karen and John in context of the bar are highly suspicious. They didn't get all the evidence because they didn't call him. So they don't know about his destroyed phone, which would make this argument a hell of a lot stronger.
I still think they needed him for that and for his car parked.
I would have called Higgins. I agree, even now, although I think I understand more why they didn't. Obviously, they were aware of things we weren't, and they knew that they were going to stack up, these effective witnesses after each other. And I think they're still way, way ahead. But as far as what Higgins gives them, I just think it gives them somebody they ignored to tack on to the, blame it on the girl, and we just don't have to look at anyone else. And he just becomes more of an example of police incompetence more than a viable, wow, this guy may have done something. That's the choice. That's the choice they made.
Yeah. And based on Canoni's comments during the morning session today, they're going to have to toe a very careful line with respect to that. And we were trying to kind of give our viewers a bit of an idea of like how Bowden works in conjunction with being able to somewhat point the finger at somebody else without slipping into a full third-party culprit thing.
She said you can't say he had motive, which I don't get. Saying someone has motive isn't exactly the same as third party. I think they should be able to say it even though they don't get the third-party culprit instruction, even like to the same extent that they can argue, the prosecution can argue that ridiculous clip is consciousness of guilt evidence, even if they don't put in the consciousness of guilt instruction.
Yeah, and she can give an instruction. Obviously, if there's a motive that makes sense, at least with Higgins, it doesn't mean you have to accuse him of doing it. You have to say, why didn't that pique the interest of the police? That's the point. Why? If they were aware of this flirtatious, weird thing, and then she ghosted him, and then he's texting her at the bar, then, the pointing at John O'Keefe, and then are you coming over here and all that, you don't even have to accuse him, but it's certainly fair game to say, why didn't the police even look into that? That's something that, we all know this. Cops by nature are suspicious, and that's okay. They're skeptical. They smell things that other people may not smell. And Higgins in this context would have been very smelly, if you know what I mean. It's something that ought to have been maybe other contexts too. Who knows? But he's something or someone who should have been pursued at least to ask these questions. And I think the effective way to say it would be, it is particularly the video. He's clearly being held back about something. Not like he's going to bum rush him and charge over there.
Right.
But having work.
He's like, hey, don't forget to invite this guy.
He's agitated. Chris Albert is clearly holding him back and then getting exasperated with, why is this guy acting like this? It's after the two Bryans were, playing grab ass or whatever they called it the first time, and doing all this stuff. And then he's motioning, come outside, and texting him. I don't know why that would not be interesting to police, who by all accounts reviewed this video. And they reviewed the video, and the only thing they saw important was, is that Karen having a drink? So, I mean, to me, that goes hand in hand with the Bowden stuff, even if they're not accusing him of committing a crime.
Right. So just like you said earlier, you point out all the things suspicious, and they can say this conduct was suspicious. This conduct was suspicious without saying the word motive, and still pointing all of that out. But then, something a lot of our viewers have been asking, and we did want to touch with you on, was, and we proffered a reason for why we thought they did this earlier, but why do you think the the defense withdrew the missing witness instruction?
Okay, so, I mean, they're still going to argue it. I mean, so they haven't lost anything about saying, where the hell were these people? And, Brennan can still say, well, they put on a case. Why didn't they call them? All of that. The best answer I could think of was to make the jury instructions less, kind of pare them down, and just have less possible confusion. And maybe they don't want, for whatever reason, the judge telling them you can do this and drawing attention to it, and just let them sum up and say they should have done this, they should have done this, and not confuse them with the concept of adverse inferences, that they want to dumb this down for the jury as much as possible and give us what I call the Jesse Pinkman summation, science, Mr. White, science. It's all science, like over and over and over, because this is, as we talked about earlier, the only murder case I've ever seen where every single medical and other type of doctor, engineer, whatever you want to call them, every professional literally supports the defense case, no matter who they testified for. And here they are standing saying, we think we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I've never seen anything like that.
It's insane. And Bob and I were just figuring, just like you said, they can still say it. Ask yourselves, jurors, why didn't they call the lead investigator? Why didn't they call Mr. Higgins? Why didn't they do this without getting that instruction? And when you read the instruction, it's very limiting. You have to have all of these factors. So like you were saying, that's going to bog the jury down, and somebody back there's going to be like, oh, wait, we can't even consider that because of X, Y, and Z.
I think they learned from the last trial that, at least in their experience, the jury got twisted on instruction. They got confused. So I think to every extent they can dumb it down. The facts are on their side. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid, they always say, and just argue the same point, which is, how do you not call Proctor? And they're not calling Proctor because they don't want you to hear this stuff, and they're not calling these people because they don't want you to hear that stuff. And the fact that you don't say, well, the judge, you should accept this inference, and you may find this. I don't think they're losing that much by not having it. But I think we all agree they just wanted to simplify and make the same argument, but not potentially get bogged down or get jurors bogged down in confusion.
And then,
which is a legitimate concern. Let me throw one in here. This time limit on closing arguments, and I know that she's now given them an extra 15 minutes. The way that I look at it is, when somebody's life/liberty is at stake after a month-long plus trial, there should absolutely be no time limit in terms of summations. I've never heard anything of it. I don't understand the rationale behind it. Can you help me understand?
No. Obviously this is Massachusetts. I don't know how they do it in Illinois. I know how they do it in New York, but I've never, in my experience, had a situation where, in a case certainly of this magnitude, where there are rigid limits, and if you go over the limit, you're going to turn into a pumpkin, which, by the way, she did in the first trial. I mean, she interrupted and said, and had to have Lally beg to, can I finish my sentence?
It was insane.
I mean, I don't think much of Lally, obviously, but I felt for him in that moment. That was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. I mean, this is a murder
And
case.
he never really actually got to finish the full sentence.
No.
I mean, look, in my in my experience, the relationship with the judge, not always. There are some judges that are, you know, maybe a little different, but it's very loosey-goosey in the sense that when the time comes, the judge will just say, come up. And I'm not even calling it a sidebar, just an informal discussion about, you know, how long do you expect? How long do you expect? And, you know, usually one person will say, Your Honor, I don't know. I'm thinking an hour and a half. And the judge will say, all right, what about you? And usually, invariably, in my experience, if first person says an hour and a half, the second person is generally going to say roughly the same, maybe a few less, a few more. And every single judge I've ever seen is like, all right. But what I can tell you is this. If I said I think I'm going to be an hour and a half and I'm at an hour and 47 minutes, what I'm not expecting to happen and would never happen is a judge, you know, calling a timeout in front of the jury and saying, you know, wrap it up in a summation like this. So I've never seen anything like this. Usually, you know, you trust the lawyers to try the case. I mean, I've had judges in having interesting conversations saying, you know, that sounds a little long. You sure you know, like just again, having a collegial, like that's, you know, maybe, you know, a case like this, you need that much time. I mean, it's almost just conversational, not you can't do this and why are you doing this? And, you know, they got an hour last time and now it's an hour and 15 minutes. And that just struck me as 15 extra minutes. That's the big benefit. I mean, there's no need for it. I don't know why there are limits in everything that happens in that courtroom. To me, it's unique. Maybe that's how she always does it. I don't know. I find it ridiculous.
It's bizarre. It's just bizarre. I mean, you can't, some things you just can't put a time limit on. And when you're fighting to the death for somebody's liberty, like you can't do that. Like in my estimation, because I mean, if you're Alan Jackson sitting there and you know, and this is like a living, breathing document, his closing, because he's a reader. I don't read when I give a summation. You know, and Alan obviously knows the facts of the case. I mean, every lawyer that tries cases, by the time they get to trial, they know their case and their facts inside and out. You know, but some lawyers are more comfortable reading, and he seems to take some comfort in having his script in front of him. But like when you're sitting there trying to figure out what you have to carve out,
especially when you have a time limit like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He's sitting there like having to figure out, like, oh, I have to cut this part because I'm going to go an hour and 16 minutes. You know, it's like, it's crazy.
I mean, who cares if it's 57 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes, or an hour and 40 minutes? Okay. Right. The woman's life is at stake.
That's what I'm saying.
By the way, same thing to the DA. You can take whatever you want as well, and they may match. One may be 20 minutes longer. Who cares? Just let them try the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't understand why there has to be judicial intervention in every single thing in this case.
Yeah. Everything. Just every single thing. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of things that she's done, you know, especially towards the end during the defense's case in chief. But Allie, what, like I interrupted you. What were you going to ask?
Was all right. Well, before we jump into the curative instruction, let's just start with, why do you guys think that Brennan would risk this playing like dumb about the holes in the sweatshirt in the first place? He had to know that he's not the smartest man in the whole world, and somehow the rest of the Commonwealth and defense team and every expert all missed these holes in the back of the sweatshirt. Was he literally like, I don't care, I'm going to say it to either A, confuse the jury, or in hopes that the expert's going to say, yes, I did consider those. And then he would have been like, aha, those were not made, you know, those were made by the criminalist. Like what?
So I have some pretty strong views about this. I think he absolutely unequivocally did it intentionally. I think it was egregious prosecutorial misconduct, and I think the sanction should have been much more severe, obviously, in the case, and potentially for him. And, you know, so you say, why did he do it? And I think he gave a test run. He did it during the recross, not the cross, the recross. So they did it on direct. You know, obviously, there was a cross. He didn't do it. There was a redirect, and no one ever paid attention to this, even though he had addressed the hoodie. And the only thing I can think of is that he thought they're not paying attention. It's over. And, you know, so for recross, the hoodie shows up. Nobody understood why the hoodie was even put in, you know, a glass or plastic case in the first place. Now, you know, I guess to some extent.
I mean, it seems like it.
Yeah. And I mean, you'd have to believe, if he didn't do that intentionally, that this guy, who he may be many things, that includes very meticulous, very prepared, very thorough, very hardworking, the antithesis of lazy. Okay. There's a lot of things I don't like about him, but you can't say that guy is not prepared and a hard worker. He is. And if he didn't do this intentionally, then his only defense is, I am an absolute moron who doesn't know anything about my case. But the problem is, you're talking about one of the most significant pieces of evidence in the case. It's not a sideshow. I mean, you're talking about the hoodie that they've been fighting over for years, that whether those are dog bite wounds or not, there were wounds under it. I mean, the hoodie is so critical. It's where the arm would have hit and been ripped by the taillight fragments. And for him to say, I didn't know, and it turns out, obviously, that his own criminalist had torn those holes a couple of years earlier. And then I sit there and I say, it's not just him personally. What about Lally? He's had this case longer than anyone. Why didn't he tell him, dude, what are you doing? Like, we're not doing this. Like, what about McLaughlin? What about anybody? I mean, how do we seriously believe that he didn't do that on purpose? And, you know, in my view, I think the evidence is overwhelming, just like obviously Alessi, when Bob was making his argument, certainly agrees. This idea that I didn't know, I don't think it holds water. And the problem is, you've seen them do it before. And, you know, I would have liked to have seen them include this in. I mean, if you're going for a mistrial on intentional misconduct, you might as well unload the tank and say, you know, here's my supporting evidence in addition to this. He did it with the Arcus stuff, at the pretrial stuff, when he said the defense didn't turn over this, I had to get it from the feds. Do you remember that? And he gave that 15-minute speech about, you know, we know how this works. There's games that are, I mean, he gave a speech of this dramatic story of how hard it is to get anything from the feds, but we did it, that he must have practiced before court that day. And it was all bullshit. The whole thing. He got it from the defense. The whole thing.
Another oopsie.
And then, you know, we haven't even gotten to this. And then you have the x-rays, which in my view, these are the reasons why he's not doing a rebuttal case. He's not worried about Welcher getting destroyed. He's worried about Welcher costing him his law license.
I mean, that was, I was surprised that to me, I think it, I guess, was a decision that we're going to let that hang out there by the defense, and we're going to bring it up with our witness when this guy who will say whatever, whenever, is not on the stand. But I think there should have been another motion for a mistrial right there for prosecutorial misconduct. That is fucking outrageous. And like you said, there is no way in hell, just like he knew that those holes were not something that had to do with anything, and that he wasn't the only one in the world who noticed them and like, oh, the holes. He knew the x-rays were there. Like, he knew they were there, and he elicited this testimony, and he has a constitutional obligation to have corrected it and not to have elicited it.
I think the x-ray argument is even more troubling for him, and I think that's ultimately why he aborted the rebuttal case. I mean, First of all, I think you're right. I mean, Massachusetts rules are mostly the same in every state. I think it's rule, 3.3A1, correcting false information. You have an obligation on a material misrepresentation. at some point, somebody at that table should have said, this is wrong. The problem with the x-rays, as important as the hoodie is, and the hoodie is like, up there, the condition of John O'Keefe's arm, which I know the hoodie is part of, but I'm talking the medical condition of his arm may very well be numero uno of anything. And in fact, what may be even most important is what's going on with his bone structure, because everybody sees, you don't need an expert even to tell you this, a car smashing into your arm, your first reaction is, that's going to leave a mark in Chicago. Yeah,
I'm with you.
That's going to leave a mark. I mean, everyone knows that is just, you've got to be bruised, right? And there's got to be broken bones. And the experts say that. So here you go. They do an autopsy, and no surprise that they're told it's a car accident. They see certainly injuries on his arm, the cuts, abrasions, whatever we're calling them. It makes perfect logical sense that they're going to look at his arms and his legs for broken bones, because that's, in a car accident like that, what you would do. So they exist as of like January 31st, 2022. And they're part of the autopsy, and you can see they're dated. And it even says, Sandwich, Massachusetts, which is where the medical examiner's office is. I mean, so it's obvious when these are done, you have to assume they're disclosed by Lally to the defense, because there's no reason not to. They're not thinking that, I have to like delete an x-ray from this because it's going to show his arm's not broken. I mean, 2 days after the accident and a couple of weeks later, he's probably just disclosing the autopsy report and whatever else it contains, right? Including x-rays. Okay, fine. So now he gets this expert who comes in and says, I reviewed everything. And I looked at Karen's interviews. I looked at the state police photographs. I looked at witness statements, all the non-scientific stuff. But I also looked at the scientific stuff, and I looked at the x-rays. And, well, what about the arm? Well, there was no x-ray, so I don't know. So that's where it gets interesting to me. He knows that x-rays exist. And if you said to any normal, reasonable, remotely intelligent person involved in this case, and you said, if they took x-rays, what would be, on the facts of this case, the most significant x-ray to see? And 100 out of 100 people would say, well, his right arm. Right. What happened to his right arm?
So this guy, Brennan didn't give him to him.
So, which can only mean exactly. So I came up with this the other day. There were I came up with 4 possibilities, some more ridiculous than the other. As far as Welcher, one possibility is he's just lying. That's hard to believe, that he would literally just lie, because unless he was told to by the DA, but in the real world, the DA would say, Your Honor, under Rule 3.3A1, what is he talking about? So he's probably not lying, okay? Possibility number 2 would be he's incompetent and he just missed it. And that's more possible than him just lying. But given that it's the most significant x-ray that's obvious, because it would correspond with your finger painting on the arm, that would be the one you would look at. So that's not as likely either. So another, third possibility is, well, the DA's office just never got, that x-ray. Well, that's not true, because the defense had it and it's obvious. And then the fourth possibility is that Brennan didn't give it to him.
Right.
And Welcher is actually, on this issue, an innocent party. He didn't have the information, the data and science that Brennan promised to deliver. I mean, look, if I'm Alan Jackson, I'm putting in the summation. Brennan told you in his opening, this case is going to be based or won on data and science. Okay. And you know what Judson Welcher didn't have? Data and science.
Zero.
Okay. That's
data. Zero
and
time.
He literally looked at x-rays except the important ones. So he didn't have the data or the science. But so if he took it out, which I just don't want to believe. I mean, that would be that's disbarment if that were true. Okay, if that were provably true, that's so far gone. But you see that he did that, and then you sit here and you say, okay, he's been promising a rebuttal case about we're going to blow up ARCA, like, you know, and they're going to examine their data and blow it up as recently as, I don't know, a day before the x-rays came out. And he says, I'm going to call Welcher and I'm going to call Hartnett, the one who cut up the hoodie. And then you sit there and you say, so he's not doing a rebuttal case. He's not going to call Hartnett, who could be cross-examined about, you kind of told the DA that you did this and made a report and you prepped for trial and, you know, presumably, you know, you share. And then, of course, Welcher, who probably would be in position to say, look, I mean, I'm a scientist, allegedly. If the x-ray of the arm was there, I would have looked at it and considered it. It wasn't there. And then there's, you know, Alessi, like, you mean this? Like, and he probably would say, they didn't give it to me. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And at that point, to me, I'm looking at Brennan and I'm thinking he's not doing a rebuttal case, not because Welcher got destroyed by Rentschler, which he did. And I would understand if he aborted anyway. But at this point, I'm wondering, he has a conflict of interest. I think he's not doing a rebuttal case out of his own self-interest more than the prosecution's interest, that he's thinking, I can't do this. And I think that's why he had Lally arguing today, because he doesn't want to make statements about this that could be later come back and harm him. Now, that's my opinion. I have no proof and all of that. But I don't see any other view of the evidence that all of these things, both before the trial and during the trial, were intentional, and that he literally punted a rebuttal case so that Hartnett and Welcher don't get crushed and say, that's on you, fella. Fuck you. I didn't do it. And
right. And Bob, you did say the same thing. I don't know if it was on air or off air when we were talking about that you thought that maybe Brennan just didn't give the guy the x-rays. And now hearing Mark's explanation as to why he thought the rebuttal was canceled to save his own ass as opposed to like his case. Now you understand how that kind of rings true.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
when I was looking at, first of all, my jaw dropped because we went through an entire first trial. We never heard anything about the x-rays.
We might have. I can't even remember.
No, we didn't. We didn't. Really? I went back and I listened to it. And, you know, but the fact of the matter is the arm didn't become as critical in trial 1 as it became in trial 2. The arm is arguably the strongest piece of evidence for the defense, not the prosecution. And I think that Brennan realized pretty early on that was going to be a problem in terms of one, because look, we all know, I don't give a shit what Brennan was saying in terms of, you know, kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth. Like, oh, I want Karen to read, have a fair trial. I care about her Sixth Amendment rights, but she can't have ARCA testify because those guys are full of shit and they're biased. But he wanted those guys out more than anything on the planet. And when that didn't happen for him, he had a real problem because he had in his possession, he saw the videos. He saw what the jury was going to see with how that arm interacted with that SUV at 24 miles an hour and horrifically at 29 miles an hour. And no juror is going to be able to look at that and say, okay, well, that arm's pudding. You know, I mean, that is the takeaway from that when you're looking at that.
And not only that, Bob, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Just take 2 seconds. The problem on that too, you watch those videos. First of all, it's coming from expert after expert after expert. But even if there are no experts, a 7-year-old can understand if you're getting whacked like that. That's a pretty serious owie, and there's going to be at least a bruise and almost certainly something underneath, broken bones. The last other point where Brennan really would be killed by Welcher, whether it's on purpose or not, is Welcher said, I did look at x-rays, but there was not one of the arms. So he must have given him the x-rays, but somehow, you know, it's the curious case of the missing important x-ray. And they're still going to get killed on this in summation. But the way Brennan has it set up, it's Welcher who's going to take the heat because there's no proof that Brennan did anything. But I mean, obviously, as far as Karen's concerned, it's more important to win the case than take Brennan's law license for now.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
and they'll argue that Welcher, on top of everything else, is just a fraud, right? I mean, they'll pin it on him, and the way Brennan set it up, he put Welcher right out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that Welcher, he was probably also worried that Welcher was because Welcher pretty much said you'd expect to see a fracture, at least a hairline fracture. But without x-rays, we don't know. Maybe that fracture existed. So, I mean, he was definitely leaning towards if this is what happened, there'd be a hairline fracture. But no one took an x-ray. So
That's
not
how
only
he justified it.
right.
Yeah,
So-
and his wording was careful, because I went back and I looked at his testimony, and he wasn't declarative in terms of whether or not there were x-rays. He left himself a little wiggle room, which
Okay.
He said there was
when
not
I was-
one of the right arm. He said
Well,
that.
Yeah,
I don't know if he said it
he
definitively.
did.
No, he
he
did.
He
I went back and watched it
definitively
too.
said that there was
He said, I didn't see one, or words to that effect.
see, but that, to me, that leaves a little wiggle room, right? Like in terms of Welcher, like either
Yes,
that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. He's like,
he could be incompetent. That's a possibility. I missed it. But the reality is this. The problem is, if Welcher is being honest, let's assume he is, all jokes aside, whatever. If he's evaluating the case fairly, they give him x-rays. He's competent. He's honest. He's looking through x-rays, and he says, well, they didn't give me the right arm. What's he going to do? Mr. Brennan, I don't have the one that matters. Is there one?
I think it's even exactly. Don't you think it's even more likely if he didn't send it that he would have called and been like,
Yes. I don't think Brennan could have Welcher testify and explain how he could have seen some x-rays, not the arm x-ray, and there is conclusive proof that they exist and were in the possession of the prosecution 2 days after John O'Keefe died. And I think he decided, I can't have this guy testify, and I don't want Hartnett testifying either, because it's a similar, different issue, but somewhat similar.
yeah, and I mean, here's what the issue, and it begs the question, because ultimately Welcher was never able to be scorched by those x-rays. Did they miss a golden opportunity on cross-examination to just hammer him with those x-rays, thinking obviously that Welcher was coming on rebuttal, you know, but it's like once the kerfuffle, because the defense knew the x-rays existed.
I mean, look, if it's me on cross, forget rebuttal, I'm clubbing him over the head with the x-ray.
No question.
Because you can't assume rebuttal and
Right.
then this, but also you can turn it where he does turn on Brennan, and you're getting, I mean, if the jury were to see that, this case is pretty much over for all intents and purposes. So I don't know why they did it. I don't know if they were late to the party. I mean, sometimes you miss stuff. You know how it is, fast moving.
Yeah.
Hard to believe you would miss that because it's an x-ray of the arm. So
Right.
I mean, at some point, maybe when this is over, we'll get an understanding of that. But if they attack him on cross right at that time, they've had no time to really talk about it. He's
Right.
on an island. You know, Brennan's trying to skulk under the table, and it could have imploded right then and there.
Right then and there.
And either way, you win either way. I mean, you either get the prosecutor being exposed as a dirtbag who's, you know, misleading the jury, or you get the expert who's an arrogant, you know-it-all, kind of missed something important here. And either way, I mean, if you're trying to win the case, it's good.
Right.
So I don't know why they waited.
I don't know either, man. It was
They never got the opportunity, and now it just becomes hitting them in summation and just blaming Welcher.
right.
right. So let me ask you this, because, and I think these are games that Brennan intentionally played. And sometimes I think, am I giving him too much credit? But it really seems like he's doing these things. When the x-rays, they wanted to get the x-rays in through Laposata, and he was pushing to get them in rebuttal with Welcher. And the judge, they almost all agreed to that. And I said right there on the live, I was like, you can't leave it for Welcher on rebuttal. What if this fucking guy decides not to call him on rebuttal? So luckily Alan Jackson pushed, and I'm pretty sure that that's something he got in with that. But was that on purpose? And he did the same thing with the DNA on the dog. He got the DNA about the dog in through Russell, claiming he was going to put it in on rebuttal.
And there never was going to be a rebuttal. And now we're stuck with that statement about which they never addressed today.
Exactly. I was expecting them to bring it up today and say they need another curative instruction because now he never put that into evidence.
And that's how the judge kind of sort of rationalized letting it slip through at the time by saying it'll be dealt with on that. That's an interesting thing. If that's a reason why he tried to keep the x-rays and then just, I'm not calling a rebuttal case and there are no x-rays. But at the same time, he's damaged because he tried to keep out the x-rays through a forensic pathologist talking about the lack of arm injuries, who was more than capable of interpreting x-rays. And how are you doing that? Like, why is that the kind of witness that you would not want? Nobody in the world is more qualified than her to look at that x-ray and say there's nothing there.
Right.
And I don't know why they didn't put it in with their Emmy. Wait,
I don't know.
That was Laposata, so they did. Well, or why?
Well, even with Scorty Bello,
right? Why the defense didn't put it in?
Like
again, maybe they found it late, forgot about it. I don't know. It doesn't. You're right. I mean, it would have been very effective through the prosecution Emmy, who is pretty much favorable, and I think in ways.
Then you wouldn't have this whole fuck up to throw in there as part of the prosecutorial misconduct. So taking all of those things, right? The shoe debacle. Oh, this one was found at 34 Fairview. This one was
that one just kind of slipped through too, huh?
Right.
I mean,
the x-rays, the holes in the sweater, the inverted video, which was all in evidence at this trial, that they did it at the last trial. Can they use all of that, or how would you incorporate all of those things to make a Commonwealth misconduct argument in summation?
I mean, I think you just kind of merge it all together as part of your, Bowden defense, that at every level of this case, the government has been involved in things that are designed to mislead you. And also, if you can't go that far, that demonstrate a level of sheer incompetence that you just can't credit them. And I think like the example of that is the shoes. I mean, I'm not one of these people who's like, oh my God, they're two left shoes. And, but to me, the point is these people are so Keystone Cop incompetent that you can't even encourage, or you can't credit them to recover physical evidence at a crime scene, voucher it properly, mark it, bag it, all of that, and keep track of that's a left shoe found by this guy. There's the right shoe, as opposed to introducing the wrong shoe. And I think that really is an important point and comes in handy to them when you get to the way like Proctor threw all the clothes in the same bag and then kept it apparently. He kept it like in the back of his car for like a month and a half before he gave it to them. That's how you deal with the alleged glass in the shirt, right? You say it all comes back to Proctor. The guy they couldn't even call to tell you I didn't do that.
Right. So, but now circling back to the curative instruction on the holes, Bob and I both said what she said was a little bit better when she said it, what she was going to say. And then the curative instruction she gave was like insanely insufficient. It didn't even mention that he asked of this witness. We thought if you're going to give a curative instruction, you should add something like, maybe not as far as misleading or misrepresenting, but some incorrectly posed this question, something to touch on the Commonwealth's misconduct in some sense. What kind of curative do you think she's going to give it, and what do you think it should say?
I think she's going to, because I think she has to. Yeah. I think it should say that when the prosecution, suggested that the holes came from the incident on January 29th, 2022, that it is not the case. Those holes were made by Maureen Hartman on this date, as reflected in her report, which both parties had, something, I mean, really make it clear that they either knew or should have known. And it has to be blamed on them. They're the ones who misled the jury. So there has to be a pain factor in that. And to listen to them argue today, and again, very notably, Lally, not Brennan.
Right.
For the first time ever. I can see saying, all right, you handle jury instructions, I'm busy. But now you have an argument. Now you have an argument.
Now you have an argument about...
We've never seen him sit down for an argument.
Oh, but then he gets up there and actually has the gall to say why you shouldn't give this instruction any more than you've already done it. That, it might have been just a mistake, by the witness. Did you hear that? Like, where
yes.
he blamed it.
Like, what does he fucking mean, the witness?
And the thing that's just striking to me, the judge doesn't even react. I mean, you'd expect, if nothing else, you'd expect like her eyelid to twitch, or kind of have like a nervous reaction, like what? And
yes.
I can think of a lot of judges who would say, "Wait a minute, what are you telling me after what we saw the other day? You're now telling me that?" I mean, a nastier judge who's perhaps more has more grave concerns, I should say, about these things should say, if you're telling me that this might have been a mistake by the witness, are you now telling me that there was no mistake? What happened the other day, that you did nothing wrong, you didn't do anything because it was the witness's fault? What is it? Which is it? And
we know she can do it. She's done it to the defense. We have grave concerns. We saw her do it with Proctor. They're your words. Read it.
Yes,
right in there.
Yeah,
she can do it. She is just choosing not to do it with the prosecution, and it's out fucking rageous.
He got pissy with the defense lawyers for huddling, probably trying to come up with the proper language or finish what they were doing, not Brennan for what he had done by misleading the jury, and said, okay, fine, let's just bring in the jury, forget it. I mean, that was, I thought, one of the worst looks of the whole case in terms of people's perception of bias, to see not concerned about possibly intentionally misleading the jury, but two lawyers are talking about something really important about a curative instruction, and that was upsetting to the judge. That made no sense to me.
Yeah, it was great. And it's bigger than that, because when she undressed Jackson regarding the payment to ARCA with respect to their fees or whatever, their travel expenses, I mean, she has flat out called Alan Jackson a liar. She couched it in the terms of candor, which is what they call, lying in court. Right, you're not being, and Alan Jackson's going to have to deal with that shit after this trial. I mean, anytime that kind of censure happens in the middle of a trial and it's of record, the disciplinary committee in California is going to look at it, and he's going to hear from them. And for her to simply ignore every single slimy fucking thing that Hank Brennan has done, because look,
and Lally,
I'm all about some gamesmanship.
And Lally,
it happens all the time. In every single trial, there's some gamesmanship that's going to happen between counsel, between the prosecution and the defense. That's normal. This is a whole different thing. This is not normal. This is Hank Brennan coming in, and I was talking about it a couple of days ago on the live. I'm like, look, what's going on here is you've got a hired gun who has nobody to answer to. He is not an employee of the Commonwealth. This man is a special prosecutor that's being paid, and he's coming in scorched earth. They hired him for this exact reason.
Yeah.
They hired him because of exactly what he is and what he does. And he's doing it. And when you see it from the government side, and you talked about this on the last time we had you on, that look, prosecutors they're the white hat guys. They're supposed to be wearing that white hat. They're the flag bearers. They're supposed to be the ones that are fighting for truth and justice. And this guy is the antithesis of that. And everything that he has done has been shocking to me. And not much shocks me You know, I've seen a lot. I've been on the other side of it where there's been a very cantankerous relationship between me and you know a lead prosecutor when I'm practicing out of my jurisdiction, because I can come in, and I think that we might have talked about this in a case where I'm not going to have to be in front of those judges, and I'm not going to have to pal up with prosecutors in terms of trying to make sure that I'm not flame throwing my other clients that are going to be tried in that same room down the road. You know, I don't have to worry about any of that. So I can come in and just burn it down. And that's exactly what he's done. But the problem is that he's the state, and they're held to a higher ethical standard in terms of what they do and what they're allowed to do. And he is just,
it's so embarrassing for the taxpayers. And like, you know, he is a prosecutor for purposes of this case. So he is the DA's office. He does represent them. If he looks bad, they look bad. And you sit there and you say, these are the good guys, you know, are supposed to be, you know, truth, justice, all that, where, you know, sometimes on the defense side, that's a grayer area about what's right, what's just, what your goal is. And there are certain things that he does, the way he behaves, that is just so embarrassing for a prosecutor. Part of the video the other day, I don't know if you saw this, when he was doing his very nasty cross-examination of Dr. Wolf, okay, who's a professional, he's an expert, and I get it. You're trying to show that he's wrong. That's fine. And,
right.
You know, you're also making this attempt, absurdly so, that, you know, he's biased and, you know, playing on signal and whatever. But he was giving an answer as part of Brennan's aggressive cross. And during the time that he was speaking, Brennan, it's bad enough he wasn't looking at him. I mean, there are times he might take notes or look down or whatever. He was standing, almost facing the jury, staring at the floor, looking around, doing anything he could. And I'm talking for like 20 or 30 seconds while Wolf is talking out at him. He's just doing anything to look like I'm pissed off, and looking at the jury and, you know, rolling his eyes, looking around, looking down, checking his nails, anything other than say, I don't give a shit what you're saying right now. And that's just got to rub off on jurors, just to say, man, we just don't like you. You're just, why are you so petulant over nonsense? I mean, yesterday it was about freaking ham sandwiches with this, you know, and did you finish it? And did you take an Uber? So you would, or did you not take an Uber? So, or whatever it was to make it look like you weren't talking.
Mark, is he just making shit up? I mean, we've had to answer this for people in the chat. You are not supposed to answer a question that you have literally no factual basis, no actual reason to think it happened. This is not the first time he has done that. What the fuck made him ask that question?
Do you want to give an opinion about whether they planted evidence? And somebody was asking last night, you know, well, why did the judge allow that? And I'm like, why did the judge allow that? If you're Jackson, you're sitting back like,
you're like, that's awesome.
Bring it, go. It's like, this is great.
Right.
I mean, why would I object to this? This is great. Like, keep going. You're doing fine.
I wish he would have said it more. He got in a couple times. Someone could have put it there. He said at least once.
So
but
my view is, I mean, and I don't know if you've seen this too, but, you know, you get stuck in this like real high profile, high stakes case. And, you know, part of the mental discipline is blocking out the, I'm doing well. I'm doing, oh shit, this is not going well. Oh my God, if I lose a case like this, oh my God, it's on TV. You know, you have to be so disciplined to just like keep that out. But there comes a point where Brennan is just getting, but these witnesses are treating him like a punching bag, okay? And it's happening witness after witness, and the doubt starts to creep in. The end is coming closer. You're not doing well. And then, you know, you get to like this Laposata, and she steals his soul, is what I said to, you know, Auntie, that she literally just takes his soul, but he's got to keep going. But the doubt sets in to some degree, the morale flags. you get angrier, you get more desperate. And in my view, your questioning tends to get lazier, less disciplined. You're not as sharp and mentally ready as you were in the beginning. And I think you saw that with his cross-examinations.
Right.
Not that his style is, I'm not necessarily a fan of a lot of the way he does it, but he's good at it. In the beginning, he was really good at it. But the last couple days, I mean, he was just getting pantsed by these witnesses. And I just feel like these questions that he was asking, he just lost the narrative. And he's coming after Rentschler about, you don't know, because there's no evidence of how fast the car was going, where the impact was. And Rentschler's like, exactly.
Right.
Thank you.
And the jury has to be thinking like, wait a minute, dude, you're supposed to be the one telling me this is open and shut. What happened? Like, you may be trying to impeach him, but you're kind of like screwing the pooch on the whole case.
Yeah, he's
what
like,
are you doing?
He literally was like, you can't criticize my guy for trying to recreate something he never tried to recreate because there's no goddamn evidence on what happened. So how dare you try to say my guy tried to recreate something unrecreatable?
My guy was not recreating. And then one of the things they did yesterday that was just like, oh my God, when they slowed that video down of Welcher and you could just see him lean in. I mean, when you watch it frame by frame, it couldn't be clearer that he created the zone of impact. But the other thing that Rentschler did, which was so good, when they froze the car before he started leaning, you could see the whole upper arm was going to be clear. It was going to be free and clear. There was going to be nothing there. And you just see this again and again. And I thought you could just see Brennan realizing, oh shit,
I'm fucked.
I'm screwed. I mean, he's going to go in there tomorrow and with a straight face say the evidence, overwhelmingly supports her guilt because, Karen Reed's snippets on Dateline are more compelling evidence than Scorty Bello, Russell, Laposata, Barrows, Loughran, Wolf, Rentschler, But I've got Judson Welcher and Shannon Burgess and his, 17-year academic journey in which his primary accomplishment appears to be dishonesty more than anything else.
Right.
And these are his like star witnesses that he's backing up with, Jen McCabe lying to the FBI, butt dialing, changing the time. And I swear to God, I hit him. And Kerry Roberts, I lied to the grand jury about that, but so what? And, there's no Michael Proctor and there's Buchanan who's like, there is no lead investigator. We found all this taillight over the course of 3 weeks. Where the hell are they going?
I don't want to be Hank tonight. You know what I mean? It's like that. And it's when you've tried long cases that go into
just
the
going to ignore it all.
Well, he can't. He can't ignore it all. He's got to try to in some way, shape, or form try to repair what damage was done on the defense's case in chief. And it was massive because, when you sit and you try a case, and like you said, Mark, I mean, you get a vibe on how you're doing, and how the case is going. And I think coming out of their case in chief, he was still feeling pretty confident. Like, I think that he felt that Welcher had done well. I mean, like my takeaway from Welcher, and it's so, and we're both on Twitter quite a bit, and it's so bizarre to like read the people that are on the other side of this thing, like Welcher was the king that he just owned. I was like,
it's funny because
same shit, man, because Welcher provided zero. That guy provided zero science, zero data. He literally did this Fakakta fucking blue arm paint thing. I'm like, even with that test, he didn't supply any data. It was like a dude, that's some kind of shit I would do. And I have zero science background. I'm like, you know what, Al, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go out. You're going to back the Audi into my arm. I'm going to put some fucking like pink paint on there. And we'll show them. That's exactly where the mark. It was unbelievable.
And you're right. I mean, you do know how it's going as a lawyer, and you just try. I mean, me and a lot of the New York crew that I deal with, we have expressions, and the key is, you don't want to think of them at the time. They come after, your toes are tapping, all right, or I'm dancing. Like, it's just, you were dancing out there. There's blood on the floor, like on craw. But you don't want to be thinking about that then. But right. I really think in the last couple of days, Brennan was thinking, oh my God. And the word that he likes to use is inevitably going to harm the result here. And, if you're going to war with, like, you're talking like Welcher and all this, and, if you're feeling bolstered because of these, 20 people on Twitter who graduated from the Twitter law school who say, oh my God, this guy is awesome, or this is great. The problem is, one of the things they don't teach at the Twitter law school that the judge will charge the jury is there's this really fascinating constitutional concept called burden of proof and reasonable doubt. And, depending on what side of the case you're on, those can be kind of a problem. And, the Twitter lawyers, they say, oh, he owned him. And they just think that disappears everything else that's bad because it happened. And the problem they don't realize is that, like, the last couple of days when, Allen was dealing with Laposata and Rentschler, you know what? His toes were tapping. He was dancing. I mean, we're on the outside. We can talk like this. They can't like that. But that's when lawyers are dancing. It's going good, and they know it. And anybody who's being honest to the process knows it.
Yeah. Right. And it was, I couldn't think of two more powerful witnesses, because I love Dr. Russell, but I love Laposata, man. She was unflappable. I mean, she was
how good she was.
Oh my God, she was unbelievable. I was in love with her. In as much as I love Wolf, I love Rentschler. Like, he manhandled Hank in every single way. And I mean, he essentially got Hank Brennan to destroy his own expert. Hank Brennan basically was out there saying, my guy's test didn't mean shit. Right. Like, it was worthless. It had no value.
Brandon,
it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable the way it played out.
Promising that he needed to have the right to have Welcher in rebuttal because, he has found problems with the ARCA data. And now, of course, the jury doesn't know this, so there's no impact on that. But, man, what a dud did he finish this case with just a whimper? I mean, he crawled to the finish line because he got clobbered over the last week. I mean, if it's not bad enough, I mean, it feels like it's a month ago, but it's really only a week ago that there was an active duty police officer who came in, who basically ran to court to be a defense witness. Let me clear my conscience and tell you that taillight didn't look like that. And you know what? He tried to ridicule that about the picture, and he did a nice cross to that witness, by the way.
Yeah, he did.
But then comes like Rentschler and Wolf, and all of a sudden you say, this Barrows guy makes a hell of a lot of sense. Like, that's totally the way it is. And then you see like Lucky Lawfer and the plow driver who says, look, there was no body there, which of course means no case really either, because if he's not in the yard, and he tries to impeach him, he doesn't get anything out of him.
Nothing.
To the extent you say, well, maybe he missed it, maybe he didn't see it, and then here comes, Wrecking Ball Laposata, who talks about hypothermia was not a cause of death, and you're saying, oh, so maybe he wasn't out there for like all that time, and my God. And again, they're working with reasonable doubt.
Yep.
And they're stacking evidence on top of each other, and they're connecting like Legos. It all makes sense. It all works. Right. And what is Brennan stacking on? Again, Shannon Burgess and Judson Welcher.
Right. And that's why we need people to understand what a huge deal it is. This was a huge deal that the prosecution is not putting on a rebuttal case. They get the last word. And as Mark, as you've been saying, he's been fighting and fighting forever about this rebuttal and all these what he's going to do on rebuttal, to give up rebuttal after that strong. There is any way you look at it. What I was saying is there's almost something there. If every juror were to disagree on something, there is something for each of them to latch onto for reasonable doubt. There is something for him to have that case come forward and then be like, you know what? I'm not calling anyone on rebuttal.
Everything else in a trial being equal, people need to understand that the biggest advantage the prosecution has is they go first and they go last. And you know what? When you're a defense attorney, that sucks.
We hate it.
You get the primacy, you get the recency, and of course, in essence, their summation, the huge advantage, not only just the last word, is you can rebut and retort to what the defense says. Whereas when we sum up, you kind of have to be predictive and it's, you can do it, but it's never. I mean, any lawyer who does this for a living would say, if you can go last, would you? And 100% would say, of course.
Right.
I mean, and it's even worse in federal court where they get to sum up, then the defense, and then rebuttal, and it's like, how can you ever win? And the answer is usually you don't in federal court. But to willingly give that up after they just got crushed with all that scientific evidence, I don't even know what to
stunning.
say.
It was stunning. Like when Allie said it, because I don't know what I was doing. I was probably tweeting or something towards it, like the end of that live. And Allie's like, wait, he's waiving rebuttal. I'm like, what? Waiving rebuttal? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because that's how stunning it is. It never happens.
They always want to put, even if it's bullshit.
It doesn't matter.
They think of something.
Even if it's one witness, they always get the last word in, no matter what it is. And for him to not have done it was such a waving of the white flag in so many different ways, at least for those of us who understand the trade. I was like, holy shit, man.
It's even more surprising knowing his personality. Look at the other parts of this trial. He's the lawyer who has to get the last word. I mean, if you do direct, cross, he's going to redirect for too long. And then if you recross, he's just that kind of guy, right?
He's that guy. Yeah.
And he just laid down after getting witness after witness, just systematically dismantle every foundational piece of their case. And he just said, oh, okay, all right, we're done here.
I mean, speaking of him, like, Mark, I don't know how many times I've been screaming and pulling out of my hair when he gets to do a recross, but he's doing it just his regular cross. And I'm like, and the judge literally, as soon as he's done his recross, says, okay, witness. And I was like, wait a minute. Why aren't you asking the defense if they have anything to say?
Noticed many times that, judge, before you just assume, you should say, like, anything else? And then if you get the no, there have been times where she's like, okay, thank you.
Right. She always waits after the redirect and just allows him to recross without even saying, do you have anything based on that? Like, no. Based on that, not the shit you didn't say a minute ago. And not to bring this back up, and Tasha makes a good point, but so let's assume that Brennan did not really think he was going to be able, because you said maybe he thought no one was going to pay attention. It's on recross. He's going to sneak it in. And this goes to like what I was asking initially, assuming that he did not actually think he could get it past Alessi, Karen, everybody. Was he doing it for the purposes of just confusion or hoping to make the witness say, yes, I took that into consideration? Like, what was he thinking?
Right. What was his end game? Like, what was his potential end game there?
His end game, as demented and twisted and reckless as it is, was to sneak a fastball on the inside corner and assume no one would pick it up. And, the fascinating thing is if you know these people, you know, on the defense team, and, you know, obviously I do. Do you know who the one person is? I guarantee you would get nothing by
Eliza Little.
Karen Reed.
Right.
Yeah,
Karen Reed, that's what I was
right.
gonna say.
Oh, I thought you were talking Leah
why-
for sure.
That's why Tasha threw Karen. Is it getting it past Karen?
You like, if it wasn't known and it came up, I would almost, if I was a betting person, say she found it.
Well, I mean, when like we've all had the benefit of watching the first trial, so like when he brings it up, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what in the fuck is he talking about? What holes in the back of the hoodie? Like, what does he mean? What is he talking about? It was crazy.
And I think Bob did this today, even though he didn't have an official transcript, but so it's just kind of. But what happened? They noted, and I think he's right. And I don't go back and watch because I just don't have time, and I spend too much time even with like all this. But he asked Wolf about the holes, and Wolf started saying about the cuts, and he cut him off, and then just grabbed it, and like as if I don't want to hear that.
Right? Is this? I knew damn well that's what it was. He showed his own hand right there.
He did, but Wolf was so in tune to the evidence and knew what was going on. He's like, yeah, I remember that there were like cuts on the back. And he would not have known that from the reports. He would have just seen that the hoodie has, you know, cuts that are clearly not holes from scraping. And he tried to cut them right off. He grabbed the picture. You know, a lot of people said, oh, he's standing. He didn't show him it. That's true. Some people said he was standing in a way to block them from seeing. I don't know. I try to avoid like.
That's what Bob said in his argument at the end. He said that he was holding it with the back to the defense, up to the witness, and we didn't even know what the hell he was showing it. Because she was like, there was no objection. Right, on the record.
People also need to understand like lawyer culture. So Bob is a classic example of old school gentleman lawyer. Okay. You can probably tell he's not used to being in the seedy trenches of like state court in a courtroom that's like a closet with no air conditioning. Okay. And goes out of his way to be gentleman lawyer in everything he does. He asks permission. He just does it the old school way, almost from like a different generation.
Yeah.
Okay. When he is the one who gets up there and flat out says Brennan engaged in intentional misconduct, gentlemen lawyers don't do that. In fact, most lawyers don't get that dirty, if you will, in the actual heat of the moment. I mean, I'm sure all three of us do. But the point is for him to come out with all, I mean, because he's usually like Mr. Apology. I'm not suggesting this, and Your Honor, this was intentional. People should understand if he's the one saying that,
it's got weight.
He's probably never done that in his life.
Weight.
Yes. Okay. I don't know that, but that is a big deal for another lawyer to accuse another lawyer sitting 10 feet away from them of engaging in deliberate misconduct designed to mislead the jury in a murder case.
Right. Especially when it's a defense lawyer coming after a prosecutor. Like we've had it where we knew that they misrepresented a fact in terms of a witness, and the judge read us the riot act. Absolutely read us the riot act because we were impeaching the integrity.
This officer who I've known for 20 years. That's what the judge said.
Right.
Yeah. It was like he's like, you know, threatening to turn us over to the ARDC, you know, which is our disciplinary committee here. He's like, if we can't back up what we're saying, we're like, we can back up what we're saying. And we, you know, and it was like, I mean, it was a tongue lashing. So, I mean, it is a big deal. It's a really big deal.
Something else. Again, Brennan is not afraid to say things, whether they be sometimes untrue. He's not afraid to mix it up. He's not afraid to get snivelly, pissy, push back, instigate. And when after that speech and he went up, he had his tail between his legs and very sheepishly read, you know, his little prepared statement in essence, quasi apologizing. But even more noticeable to me was most lawyers, okay, certainly me, probably you too, if I'm getting called out in open court in front of the world, basically,
I've got to
and
bite
being
back.
accused of committing intentional misconduct that I absolutely did not do. Am I allowed to swear on this channel?
Of course.
I've been doing it.
Fuck you. Am I going to tell you to go fuck yourself? And you know, we're going to talk about this. And he didn't even try. He just took it and sheepishly took it.
And
And
like you said, that's not been his personality this entire time. Even when he's wrong, he'll stand up and scream that he's right and flip it around on the defense. And he just took it. And you're right. It does all say a lot. And now that, you know, explains why, because people were saying that to us earlier when we were on. Mark says he was doing it to cover his own ass. And now it all, you know,
that's my view. I think it makes sense because, I mean, look, obviously you could make a credible argument that he was smart by not recalling Welcher because he's just going to you're feeding him to the wolves. I mean, Bob would eviscerate him. And again, the expression we like to say, there's blood on the floor. Like that would be a blood on the floor cross.
Yeah.
He would just slice him and dice him endlessly. But I don't see it that way. I mean, you don't give up a rebuttal. If he really had evidence that would hurt Arca, I think that he has a conflict. In essence, it was about protecting his own rear end. I don't see any other reason because he still could have done a rebuttal case even without Welcher. Let me call Hartnett, but you know,
right.
I don't want to get into that either. He kind of
figured something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about like going back to like the Alec Baldwin case where that was kind of a stunner where mid-trial, you know, Carrie Morrissey gets pantsed, you know, she gets the whole Brady issue pops up. And like, to your point, Mark, the judge was giving her the out. She's like, you know, I don't need you to take the stand. And she's like, you know, this is bullshit. She's like, I need to make a record for myself. Yeah. And she did. She got up there and she testified. It didn't help. But
it was a choice, not a good one, but yeah.
It was not a good choice, but I've never seen that. That was another thing that I had never seen. But to your point, Hank didn't do anything even remotely close to that. You know, I mean, he just took it, which speaks volumes.
It does. And I also think he read the room, which is this. If I go up there and basically fall on my sword and give them their instruction, I know this judge is going to say, okay, we're good. And not do what I would be afraid of other judges doing, which is saying, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you need to step aside. And now we got rid of the jury. And there are some judges who would look right over at him and say, what the hell is going on in my courtroom here? What the hell is this? Explain yourself. And she just let him give his little statement. And it's a shame because if she's considering a mistrial, which, I mean, I don't think she was seriously considering it, although she should have. Obviously, his intent is important to whether you get the severe remedy of a mistrial. Obviously, if he tried to rig the jury, that's more sanctionable than just, oh my God, I made an honest mistake, fix it, I feel terrible. And how does that not factor into her analysis on whether I should give the ultimate, you know, the death penalty basically to this case? Yeah. But in order to do that, I need to make a determination. Did you do this intentionally? And she just accepted his answer, which, by the way, was a statement, a conclusion with no analysis. He didn't explain how he screwed up. And the real issue is, you know, this case upside down. Lally knows it. McLaughlin knows it. None of you had any idea about this. I mean, give me a break.
It's implausible. It's completely implausible. Lally knows the facts of the evidence of that case like the back of his hand. You know, I mean, you know, you can give him whatever you want in terms of his skill level, but in terms of knowing the facts of the case, the guy knows forwards and backwards. He knew There were no holes that had anything to do with anything having to do with John's injuries. And, you know, and he just sat there. It's like, and he is in such a weird role. Like the whole thing with Lally sitting there, like the little red stepchild is so weird, man.
He's willing to do things that I'm just not. You know, you tried the case the first time. Now you're going to sit there like, you know, a wounded puppy. Right. There was a video of him the other day that circulated where he is literally playing with paper clips while the case is going on, and you're like,
easy.
You know, but then you see him today, whether he was there to protect Brennan or not, whatever. But can you imagine being on national TV, essentially streaming whatever it is today, national TV, having tried this case the first time, knowing all these people are watching, and getting up and with a straight face arguing to the judge, there is no evidence of a dog in this case. And there's like literally no evidence, anything at all about the dog, and saying that, and then getting up and saying what he said, you know, about the witness possibly making a mistake, or getting up and saying, Your Honor, we oppose a Bowden instruction. And I actually felt
he used the leaf blower, which is widely accepted now. I mean, like Gallagher was clearly a groundbreaking cop.
There has to come a point, if you have any dignity for your own credibility, where if they give you marching instructions and someone like Brennan tells Lally, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to argue this, you say, no.
Right.
Fuck you do it. You tell them that they don't deserve a Bowden instruction when you didn't even call Proctor, and the evidence is he got terminated for bias in this case.
Right.
That the jury knows, by the way, even though he didn't testify. You know, no crime scene, you know, everything else we've heard. And you tell them, leaf blowers, solo cups, all that crap. I mean, who is willing to just make those arguments with a straight face when everyone's watching? I mean, I think it's just like, you know, I used to have an expression when I first started talking about this stuff, you know, being a zombie prosecutor. You can't, you know, they just keep coming. And usually most lawyers and prosecutors are governed by, is this credible? Is this credible? I can't be not credible. Like that's your reputation. That's your best stock in trade, is your credibility. And these guys, you know, you can put them down, they get knocked down, and they just keep coming, and you can put them down again, and they just keep coming. And when you saw them at the charge conference making these arguments today, I flash back to zombie prosecutors back. Yeah. I mean, I literally joke. He's like Dirty Lally from Dirty Harry. You need a dirty job, he's the guy to do it. It's so
he's the guy. I mean, because you know, Morrissey's like even going into the first trial with all the shit that was going down with it. You know, those conversations between Morrissey and Lally were like, "Fuck you, you're doing it." You know, because like, and the autonomy that a prosecutor has, if they're not the prosecutor, if they're not the elected prosecutor or appointed prosecutor, I don't know how they do it in Massachusetts. They're all elected out here, but you know, I mean, if you're just the guy that's in that office, I mean, you're doing what you're told, you know, and your only other option is to walk away from the job and, you know, say, all right, you know what, I'm going to go hang a shingle, go fuck yourself. I'm not doing it, you know, and
I don't think he's going
that takes balls to do that though, too. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, that's not an easy conversation for a prosecutor to have with their boss who's telling you you're trying this case and you're going to try it how I'm going to say that you're going to try the case. And, you know, I just get the sense that that's what happened with Lally. And that's why they went outside of the office for Brennan. And Brennan, the dude is a straight up street fighting bare knuckle dude, man. I mean, you could tell.
Who paid almost $400,000 for finger painting.
I mean, but beyond that, it's like to go back to your comment about how he crossed Barrows. And I was saying the same thing. And it's like, you know, I'm a defense attorney. I can respect and understand when somebody's doing an excellent job of crossing a cop. And believe me, that is where defense attorneys live. That's where we make our bread and butter, is in particular crossing cops. That's what we, you know, so because I was going to ask you, so I want to touch on Proctor a bit. in terms of Proctor, okay, and it's kind of a twofold question. One, do you think that they dirtied him up enough? And two, do you think it was a mistake not calling him because maybe they haven't dirtied him up enough going into summations?
So, I mean, obviously, I understand now more why they didn't. At the time we last talked about this, I don't think we knew what Barros was going to do, right, and how the rest of these witnesses were going to testify in a way that was going to just, I mean, I think eviscerate the DA's case and focus on science, which is more important. Yeah. Having said that, I'm still calling Proctor and I'm still calling Higgins because there's never enough. And I'm not worried what they're going to say. I don't think I'm losing focus. I think, you know, Barros and Arca give me cover when Proctor tries to cry about not planning taillight, but he didn't investigate these things. And, you know, I get it not calling him, but I would do it. You know, one of the concerns I would have, I don't know that it's the biggest concern in the world, is in the defense opening, they did say a lot of things that they left out. They did talk about, you know, John O'Keefe definitely went in the house. They talked about Brian Albert and Brian Higgins and all that kind of stuff. There was some discussion about, you know, some of this Proctor stuff, and, you know, they didn't deliver it and they made a choice, and I get it. And by the way, I still think the reasonable doubt is off the charts. And I think they tried an incredible case, especially the last like 4 or 5 days. They were just incredible. And I understand the strategy. It's interesting. It's a little different than I would have done, but I like how they handled it. But the risk is Brennan, again, he has to be careful not to burden shift and say they were obligated to do things. But given the way he is, I would fully expect him to say,
they, you know, through with their openings.
Talked about a lot of this. And I wonder 30 minutes later, maybe the light goes on. Maybe that's why the missing witness charge went bye-bye. That doesn't, you know, look so good asking for that in front of the jury when you're going to get crushed by the prosecutor saying they told you this, they didn't do it. They told you this, they didn't do it. And of course, it's still the burden of proof. But they're probably going to have to address some of that again in their predictive summation and say there is no burden of proof in this. Or maybe they even address the point that they didn't call some of these people and
right,
you know, and blame.
We didn't need to. He said it would. The prosecution told you this case would rest on the science and the data, and you know what? That's what we thought it rests on too.
It did, because I mean, and they tried the exact case I would have tried. This is the case because
I'm sorry, but they needed Higgins' car at the end of the driveway.
I just don't think that they did. Like, because
it was a big piece for even their experts said if there was a car there and she kept going, well, she would have hit it.
I agree with Allie, although I will say that argument strikes me less today than it did yesterday due to the ultimate evisceration of Welcher by Rentschler. Yep. And really just killing his credibility. But I agree. If that's their case, is essentially, you know, they're stuck with it. They, you know, you got to go to the dance with the one you brung, and it's Welcher and Burgess. That's what it is.
Sure, guys.
If you really want to crush them, I do think if you put the Jeep there, that's problem for the. I don't know how they account for that less space. And, you know, the problem with Higgins, too, there's no way to get around that. I mean, he gave the story of driving in the driveway and making fake plows. And, I mean, yeah. So,
I mean, but I think if you're the defense, you're thinking about, like, the Nagel problem. You know, it's like.
But it doesn't matter. Nagel doesn't need. He knows where he parked. If the man tells you that's where he parked, and I'm certain that's where I parked, and that's where I stayed until I pulled away, that's the person that you're going to believe.
Yeah, but like if you're,
why would he lie in their mind?
That crew that was in the car with Nagel, like she was, I forget what the blonde's name was, but she was a very, she was a very credible young lady.
You can also do it this way. I mean, I agree. I think the kids in the car are really credible, bad witnesses for the prosecution, obviously. But you could also say you have Higgins and Jen McCabe with the Jeep. They have credibility problems. But let's assume they're telling the truth. That destroys Welcher. If they're lying, you're doing
what
well.
Are they lying about?
And then you still say Welcher, and you say it could be this, it could be that. Either way, it's a problem for them, and they don't know, we don't know. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the problem with the whole fundamental premise of this case. Who the hell knows?
Right.
So I think
no one knows what happened to John O'Keefe. That's the entire point.
That's what the prosecution proved. No one knows.
Yeah, I mean, their own the one medical witness they tried to call to kind of tell you what happened. Brennan tried to get so cute with him because he was from Minnesota, thinking hard ground, we're good. And he's like, yeah, drunks fall all the time in my practice and smash their head. And you're thinking, well, John O'Keefe was not in the car. That's the kids in the car. And, he was intoxicated. And maybe that happened. Maybe he was walking to the house. She left and he just.
I loved him in terms because the slip and fall theory has been my alternate theory for 2 fucking years. I'm like, whatever happened to the guy just got out? He's shit faced and he slipped and smashed the fuck out of the back of his head. I'm like, and then people are like, what about the dog bites? And I'm like, what about a fucking coyote? Have you seen what's on the opposite side of the tracks from 34 Fairview? It's like 500 acres of like wooded area. I'm like,
but that was the best part with Laposata.
Shit.
Laposata was I loved that Laposata was limited to say animal.
Yeah,
interesting.
That just gave the jurors a whole other thing. I was sort of upset. I'm like, why are we limiting it to dogs? And why are we going to try to limit it to one dog? So
one of the things I found interesting, I'm just going to say that Brennan just ignored, and this was Rentschler, and it's funny because it wasn't like the most scientific thing he said, but it's just one of those things where I have no science training. I don't want any, and I don't need any, but I can go where this guy is saying, okay, I looked at his arm and I find 36 unique abrasion patterns in different directions. Okay. And then I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 holes covering that. And
boom.
Yeah, that's kind of not going to work for me.
It's done. Yeah. Like that whole thing. And
that's what I'm saying. I think. Go ahead, babe. Sorry.
I was waiting for him to bring up the concept that those small rice size fragments that they claim that they found in John's sleeve somehow got in the sleeve and were just rubbing around randomly doing all that damage. I thought he was going to bring it up with Rentschler, but he just didn't. He kind of like tiptoed towards it, but he didn't take the leap in terms of jumping off the cliff with it, because Rentschler would have just eaten him alive with that whole concept of it, and then again with, kind of the boomerang glass thing, the magical boomerang glass thing and the nose. I mean, I don't know here. All right. So I want to play devil's advocate. All right. And like we said at the top, all right, we never know. We never know what a jury is going to do. You never know. You never know. We could sit here. All three of us are confident as all get out. This is open and shut, reasonable doubt all day. If you were to open the dictionary, Black's Law Dictionary, and look up the definition of reasonable doubt, this case is the definition of it. That being said, if I'm Hank Brennan, I'm arguing if the taillight wasn't broken in front of 34 Fairview, how did it get broken? And the question that I have for you is, did the defense do enough on the cross of Welcher to leave that as a possibility of where the taillight was broken? Because if it's not cracked there, and then you've got Bederow to support that proposition that the taillight was cracked at John's place at One Meadow, and then you follow it up with Bederow, it fits very nicely. If if they didn't do enough to get that jury to say, okay, well, if it didn't happen at John's house, it had to have happened at 34 Fairview. That's where my fear lies in terms of this jury. And do you think that they did enough in terms of handling the proposition that that taillight did in fact get cracked when she backed into John's vehicle?
So they didn't have ARCA touch it.
Well, I was just going to lead with that. The most fascinating point of this discussion is they never asked their experts, which, you know, you can read into that however you want. Maybe the answer was inclusive in a way that isn't great. I don't know. But the gift they had was Rentschler's complete destruction of Welcher, and you say that they're stuck with finger paint guy.
Right.
And they did talk about how he didn't account for the Lexus could lift and this, and they're very
huge.
Yes.
That's huge.
And there's something else they have, and you know, this is really important. There's a video. Okay. And the video shows the car move. There was impact. And the problem with Welcher is he didn't do, you know, the ARCA level discussion about force and this and that and what could cause it. And I mean, I think he did better on the one Meadows explanation perhaps than he certainly did out there. But the problem is you're still trying to fill in blanks. And I don't know that you could get to, well, it had to have happened in front of 34 Fairview. So that means she ran him over, destroyed the taillight, caused these injuries, and every freaking medical person is saying no, 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 no. And what I would do is, if I'm thinking of this in the jury, could there be people who say, that's a little sketchy to me? I don't know. That, like your point. But you know what? That's your brain is then going to rebound and say, yeah, but the science of this, and it comes down to, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or maybe. And when you start using words like that,
it's reasonable doubt.
Out the door she goes. Yeah.
Reasonable doubt, which, you know, we said this the last time. I mean, Alan's just got to pound them over the head with what reasonable doubt is, and he's got to use it for every single instance of reasonable doubt that exists in this case. He's got to continue to just pound them over the head with saying this is reasonable doubt.
Stack the Legos, like each fact goes to the already pile of reasonable doubt. Here's more, and then you say at the end, you know, I've created a castle of Legos a mile high, and I don't really need that. I just need like one Lego. And maybe Legos are not the example I'd use, but the point is it stacks together, and there's so much.
So let me ask you this, because we're talking about, you know, objections and failing to object. So with the whole Rentschler, Welcher, Wolf, whatchamacallits, exhibits, their PowerPoints. Okay. So the defense didn't object at the time to the PowerPoint coming in of Welcher.
Yeah.
Then Brennan says, strategically, I decided not to object to Wolf's, but I'm surely objecting to Rentschler's. What do you think was he going to take from Wolf's to point out something negative, that he was afraid of Welcher's? Like, well, what do you think about that?
The hoodie. I think he wanted the report saying, I reached all these findings and conclusions based upon no damage to the hood.
9 holes versus.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, I think he tried to stick a landing on a gotcha moment by, you know, going back to he's wrong. I can understand why he wanted to keep Rentschler's report out. It was devastating. I also think, you know, one of the reasons he would allow Wolf's report to go in more is that if he's hoping to fool some of the jurors like he fools some of the Twitter law school graduates who, if you recall, after last week or earlier this week, whenever it was, they saw a video at 24 miles an hour and something dramatic happened. The taillight shattered, and these people were tap dancing in the street saying, that's it, she's guilty, the case is over, see, it breaks. even lawyers. I mean, I saw
I saw him too.
I saw a TikTok video of a lawyer saying, is there nobody who would tell this defense team? Like, no one in that conversation. Like, what are you doing? Are you kidding me? Like, you're done. And I'm thinking, did you watch the whole thing? I mean, there's kind of more than just the taillight. But I think he doesn't have a lot to work with. So the image of the taillight, as opposed to what you see in Rentschler's report, again, the stuff in Rentschler's report, which I think is shocking, are the videos that he has of Welcher. I mean, have you ever seen anything more pathetic in an expert report of a slow motion thing where a guy has his arm out and as the car comes up, he just leans in like that and then walks around and says, see, and then he said another match. And then he did something else that was really interesting. He took the hoodie off for that examination. Like, he's cosplaying as John O'Keefe, but when it comes time for finger paint, he took it off. And then, Rentschler said something else, which I think was really, really effective in showing that, he's kind of thinking scientifically more than I have paint on my arm. He said, all that the paint could even show, if you even credit this, whatever the hell that was, is that's the range of possibility of the injuries, but he never measured. He never, examined. Nothing scientific to see if it corresponded.
Nothing.
My guy did not try to recreate anything. My guys didn't do anything. So stop trying to criticize them for doing something they couldn't do when there's no evidence to do it and no details or facts to support it.
Because we have no idea what happened over there. Are you suggesting that our guys should have made up? I'm like,
pretty much. That's pretty much what the jury was told and watched.
I mean, oh,
he had like a Perry Masoned himself.
That's what one of our viewers said. He Perry Masoned himself.
Yeah, it was Sean. It was Sean over
at 2 miles an hour.
At 2 miles an hour. Yeah, I like so. I mean, where I'm at with this thing, like and to kind of go back to the one Meadows 34 Fairview thing with the I think.
That's a good argument for the prosecution.
It is, but I think it's enough in conjunction with the fact that you have the testing that ARCA did, where they actually showed their work. They actually because you know what Welcher could have done after they bought the Lexus? They could have easily just bought a Traverse, and they could have demonstrated. They could have just backed it in. And if I'm Alan Jackson, what I'm doing in summation is I'm arguing. They had all the resources they needed.
Unlimited funds.
Unlimited funds. Look, they're gonna resell the car.
I was gonna say, they could have sold the car and it would have had minimal damage. They're good.
Right. Yeah. Like, there's not gonna even be a broken taillight. So I mean, if I'm Alan, I'm hammering that point that they easily could have done that. They didn't do it for a reason. You're turning that around. The same reason that you were kind of saying, well, you can look at the ARCA and them not touching it. You can look at it the same way for Welcher, because whatever that picture was with the weird looking, like it looked Photoshopped to me. I'm not implying that it was, but it looked strange in terms of when you're looking at this taillight that protrudes. It's a protruding taillight. It sticks out further than any other part of the car. And when they're backed up like that, it had some bizarre shape where the entire protrusion is invisible. I asked Allison, I'm like, what am I looking at? She's like, oh, that's the part that's in contact with the thing. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, what are you talking about?
The best thing they have going for them is there's a video and it shows impact and it shows the right rear taillight making impact. Right. I mean, that's a hell of a coincidence if it didn't do something. And the counter argument to that is finger paint guy. So, right. I mean, I'm not, again, I don't think it's obviously the defense's strongest argument, but they benefit from the video on their side and the expert who is completely discredited about his work on the other side. And when you're in the concept of reasonable doubt and all the other strong points they have, I don't think it's anything more than a hiccup. It probably is the kind of thing that I think the jury would have to walk through, but I don't think it's hard to get to, well, reasonable doubt. That's not confirming a pedestrian vehicular strike in front of 34 Fairview. That's not doing it.
He
Yeah,
can't do
I
it
agree.
because he doesn't know any of the details, and they're not going to try and say what happened. Well, I'm sorry. Why did your guy roll into a car with the
prosecution
paint?
of a case where I've seen where the government actually doesn't have a theory.
They
don't have a theory.
They don't have a medical examiner who said homicide. I have never in my life, and I expect I never will again, see a case where a prosecutor prosecutes a murder case where the medical examiner says, I can't really tell you for sure that this is not an accident.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, what if I told you she said, I hit him, and there's taillight pieces? Well, maybe, but I don't know. I mean,
it's like back in the old days, back in the old lawyer days, it was, they used to say no body, no crime, I mean, they try a lot more cases, no body cases these days, but back in the old days, no body, no crime, because there's still that possibility that person's not walking around in the world.
A good friend of mine tried the case in Manhattan where a doctor who was a pilot murdered his wife in 1985 and dumped her in the Atlantic Ocean. He flew his plane out from Teterboro and went out to the Atlantic while driving, dumped her in a suitcase, and she was a missing person for about 13 years or so.
Wow.
And they reopened the case and they built it systemically. They obviously never found her body.
Right.
And they tried him, I think, in 2000, and he was convicted, a medical doctor, and they actually had NYPD guys go out in the same type of plane and see, is it possible to, for what her body size would have been to like fly a plane and push it out. And they made videos, they did science, and he was convicted. He's in prison. Look it up. Robert Birnbaum.
Wow.
Fascinating case. He's been on, that case has been covered on like 2020 Nightline and all, but they never found a body. They had the other famous Manhattan case, Sante Kimes, who, I don't know, the grifter mother and son, the Kenneth Kimes, these weirdos who killed an elderly rich lady on the Upper East Side. They never found her body. I think that was the first no body murder case in Manhattan in like whatever. And yeah, I mean, times are different.
Yeah, very, very different times. So in terms of if you're Alan, like how are you like let's pretend you're giving the summation, Mark. What is your final statement? How are you closing this case? What do you, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but just like roughly, like what are you saying to make sure that it lands with the jury as kind of your final statement? And I can't remember in Massachusetts, does the state get, is it state defense state? Do they get a
no,
didn't do that, right?
Defense prosecution. So they're just two, not three.
Yeah, no rebuttal closing.
I mean, I think he'll do most of it science. I mean, 75 to 80%. And then I think he'll end similar to the way he did I don't know if you remember this, but it was a, kind of a call to duty, a very impassioned about, what it means to do justice and what this is. And I think you have to finish it up with what we've been pounding all the time and just once again explain we're talking reasonable doubt, okay? And there is just so much, and that there is only one verdict that is even remotely close here, and you can just bullet point again and tell them to do their duty. And I think they will, but I'm finishing up with reasonable doubt. I think, and we've talked about this before, I'm sure too, or I have with other people, maybe this isn't like the best orator closing of all time because you have limited time and there's so much reasonable doubt, and you have to emphasize that it is reasonable doubt and go back and back, and maybe it sounds a little repetitive, but if anybody can turn that into like an art form and impressive oratory, it's going to be him. I mean, he's as good as anyone as you'll ever see deliver a compelling thing. And I think the other advantage he has is the way he projects physically and sounds. I mean, it's pretty clear he believes what he's saying.
Yeah.
Brennan, you know, it's just kind of a monotone drone.
Used salesman, used car salesman, one or the other.
Yeah, no, little, I mean, there are times he comes off a little smarmy. I mean, it is what it is. And, you know, not that he doesn't believe in what he's doing, but it just sounds like, you know, it's my job. It's what I'm going to do.
And it sounds like he'll say whatever. And just because he's going to ignore a lot of things and he's going to say things that the jurors are going to remember, that ain't right. I mean, we know he's a gaslighter and they have seen it, at least in so much as the holes in the shirt and the x-rays. So they know it's not beyond him to just lie to their faces. So I think they're going to be keeping an eye out for that. And I hope it bites him right in the fat ass. Not that it's really fat, but you know what I mean? And, you know, I'm real big on, look, we can give you some ideas of what we think might have happened or what we think could be reasonable doubt. But when you're back there and you're all throwing out your own theories and you're coming up with other possibilities, could it have been this? Could it have been that? If those are reasonable things that you're contemplating, you guys have just demonstrated your own reasonable doubt. It's you that decides.
I mean, you know, they have to understand that probably, maybe, even likely ain't going to do it. And you just, you know, and again, you have to hope they pick the right jury that's going to follow the law. You know, the Massachusetts instruction is crazy. I mean, they have moral certainty built into it.
Yeah, they've got a pretty strong one.
I thought that stuff stopped like after the Puritans left, and I can't believe the jury instruction is reasonable doubt to a moral certainty. I mean, you're basically telling these jurors, you know, if you have any guilt about this, you know, you can't do this. I mean,
right, and that's why telling them, if you're back there tossing around, it could have been, what if, maybe,
then you know,
reasonable doubt.
It's done. It's done.
Doesn't have to be what I told you. It doesn't have to be what he told you. It's what you think. Yeah. And if you're back there saying to each other, could it have been, might it have been, what if this, there's reasonable doubt.
I think also one of the things they can do that will also really streamline the case, and if they're on a time limit, I mean, it seems obvious to us, but for jurors, they need to, and I'm not talking about like Johnny Cochran's style, like if, you know, the glove don't fit, you must acquit.
Right.
But there's a really critical principle here, which is if you have any reasonable doubt just related to the issue of a pedestrian vehicle strike, we're done here. There's nothing else to think about. And that goes for every charge of everything, not guilty, done. Because
what's her name? The friend of John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. She, you know, I got to revisit their DUI statute, but here in Illinois, it's specifically, it's not like I mean, maybe if you double the number, but you've got to be unable to safely drive. So they don't have a number here. And you've got a woman who said, I'm a pharmacist. I'm a mother. I hadn't been drinking the whole time. I'm like Mrs. Goody Goody. And she seemed completely, you know, fine to drive. And then you have the people who saw her driving saying she was driving fine. She wasn't driving erratic. She
pulled right in. Yeah.
Right. No. So that, despite all of what he puts in about what she drank, that right there is reasonable doubt to even overcome the DUI charge.
Yeah. No, I think there's reasonable. It's suffocating, the amount of reasonable doubt. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those cases where, you know, I always have this fear that it's going to be hung again because I mean, if we look at just kind of like the public at large, and I think if you look at most polls, it doesn't matter where you're going, if you're on Court TV or wherever they do their polls, like in this, it seems to be along the lines of 80-20, not guilty to guilty, right? I mean, and like Twitter seems to kind of mirror those numbers, and so in my mind, you know, I mean, that's the general public, so I always worry that is how this thing's going to shake out with the jury, and that this is one of those cases that just never goes away, that they just keep not being able to get a conviction on it. And they just, because they're so dug in for whatever reason, they're so dug in on this thing that they just keep trying to, I mean, that's my worst fear. My worst fear, aside from obviously them coming back with the guilty, is that they come back with a not guilt or with a mistrial because they just can't reach a unanimous decision. And you're stuck in this kind of like, it's like the concept of finishing 500 in the NBA year after year after year, where you're getting a middling draft and you can never dig out of the hole because you're stuck there. It's like you're never bad enough to get a number 1 pick overall or number 2 pick.
You are a disgruntled Bulls fan, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, man.
You're telling on yourself.
Hey, it's been a long time since Jordan, man. So,
Yeah. One thing I want to know, because I know you want to let Mark leave soon, but one thing I want to talk about real quick, and someone asked it in the comments as well, was, like in their opening and in the argument on the directed verdict, like Brennan was very much like, we're not saying she intentionally hit him. But at the same time, he argues she looked in the rearview mirror, she put it in reverse. So, but whatever. But when you talk about them wanting to actually delete the first two parts of that jury instruction on murder 2, it's like that's sort of Brennan's way of kind of as close as I can get to walking away from murder 2, of trying to get. What do you think?
I don't know. To me, it's like they just have no intellectual integrity in what they're doing. I mean, we've heard all this talk about, she gunned it in reverse because she was so angry of all this. You saw it at the first trial. They had the kids testify. Oh, I remember this argument in Aruba. And you're like, are you kidding me right now with that? That feels like so contrived. And then by the time it gets down to the time to deliberate, well, we don't really even care. We just wanted to dirty her up a little bit. We know that charge is bullshit. We're not going to dismiss it because, maybe we'll hope to get them to compromise and feel, that they're being fair to everyone. I mean, to me, it just seems like more gamesmanship.
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, like going into this second trial, I thought if the Commonwealth really wanted to have a shot to get a conviction on this case, that they would have just dropped the murder 2 altogether. Because it's like right. I mean, you're forced to argue out of both sides of your mouth because of the intentionality aspect.
Well, and that's why he wants to wipe off the first 2. I mean, they are oars, so
yeah. I mean,
I don't know, but usually our jury instructions, they'll have brackets and they'll say, like in the comments, they'll be like, you can delete the ones that don't apply. Right. But that's not in there. So that's why they were like, well, is it permissible? Is it not permissible? And you have Yannetti kind of leaning into Alexi, who's their like appellate lawyer as well. Like, should we agree to let them take out the first 2 or, should we not?
I mean, again, to me, it really comes down to the car accident, and I'm not getting too into the weeds. I mean, I think I'm not asking for any lesser included. I'm maybe this is the wrong approach, but I'm an all or nothing on this. I mean, to me, if there's no car accident, I'm going home. And
as the defense, because the defense was asking for some lessers.
That's probably the minority view, and certainly as the defendant, usually you're like, anything less than top count is some ground to be happy. Here,
right. We know jurors can sometimes compromise, and it's a risk to put in.
It's a big risk, and they're all some form of homicide charge. To me, if you put them at all or nothing, and it's a car accident or not, I'm erring on. There's just no evidence of it.
Right. I mean, there just isn't. Like, it's always been that to me in terms of. I've always just followed the science on this case. Well, the first time I saw Wolf and Rentschler testify, I'm like, wow, man. And they didn't have the ability to be able to do the additional testing that they did this time, which was
you didn't even get to prep them. And you saw day difference of how much
difference.
they were good the first time, and how it's much stronger
Yeah.
Mhm.
the second time they were. I mean, they were,
Obliterated their case. I just think I just like I at first, I was thinking, well, it could be hung, but I'm just, and maybe I'm blinded, and maybe I'm, I definitely am biased at this point, but I just think there's so much reasonable doubt. Like, I honestly almost can't see a hung jury at this point.
short of like corruption and that kind of nonsense, I agree. And I certainly, the idea of 12 out of 12, that strikes me as impossible. Literally
impossible. It's, and that being said, I think that Hank is going to lean heavily into the clips. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays some of the clips again during his closing. And if you're Alan, how much time, if any, are you wasting talking about those
Russell
clips?
gave it to them at
Right,
Brennan's
trauma response.
Brennan elicited it.
Yeah, I mean, because that's exactly what it was.
There's another time Brennan tried to fucking gaslight the jury. He said, "What about a year later?" She wasn't saying that a year later. A year later, she was explaining why she said it then. And I was screaming when he did it. Like, that right there is prosecutorial. He is misleading the jury.
Yes. I mean, I would mention it, obviously, what you just said. I think you have to put it in a little context, but I think you can also sweep aside those and say, are we going on 30-second snippets in the context that you just described, or are we going on science?
Right.
And there's a collision between the two. And we're not just talking about opinion science. It's hard science. It's mathematical science, physics, formulas, Newton's law of force, mass, velocity, all this other crap that you never want to think about. Right. That kind of trumps Karen talking to Dateline saying, I don't know. I was concerned. Could I have hit him? Like, really? That's proof beyond a reasonable doubt? No chance.
No chance, but it's like, I worry about everything. So it's like, I do, and it's like, I hate to admit, I sometimes I lack faith in humanity in terms of just their ability to be able to process shit, man.
Well,
So
we
it's like,
saw it in the first trial. We saw
I know. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm looking forward to this being over for Karen.
I'm of the opinion if they come back quick, that's a defense verdict.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you never know what's going on, but if they were to come back very fast, that strikes me as we've gone through it. Science, we just can't go any farther. Yeah. No, I would think the longer it goes, there'd be modestly more reason of concern.
What do you guys consider? What would you consider for this trial?
Monday.
Yeah, Monday. Like, to me, Monday would be quick. If they
came back Friday, it's a defense verdict. Like,
there's no question.
Shocking.
I mean, I think it's warranted, but that would be stunning. That would be a referendum to the jury, to the prosecution, and be like,
exactly. Double whammies for
sure.
Yeah,
that's a double tap.
All right, Mark, you have anything else you want to say before we let you go? Because you've stayed with us so long. We're very
it's fun as always, but it'll be fun to see how they do this tomorrow. I got to be honest. I mean, obviously, Alan, I'm more interested in his summation because he's really good to watch, and obviously, as lawyers, real lawyers like to watch other real lawyers and see what they're doing. But I will say, as painful as it is, I'm more interested and more fascinated by Brennan's, because I'm dying to see how he even attempts with a great face to dig out of this hole and plug all these holes of reasonable doubt that are coming through the dam with two fingers. And how is he going to plug them all? I mean, I don't think he's going to, but I'm fascinated to see how he's
doing, man. Same. It's like, I've got this kind of weird fascination with Brennan, man. Like he's it's like he's like watching a car accident. It's like I just can't take my eyes off of him because I just want, like, and then that's exactly it. I mean, Alan's got everything laying there, and He's going to be uber prepared for this thing. He's been preparing for it. It's going to be just beautifully orated. It's going to be concise. He's going to nail all the points. So it's like we kind of know what we're going to get with Alan. I mean, how he puts together Hank, man. Like, oh my God.
No clue. But I will say this. I mean, you do this for a living, and the thing that Alan gets tonight, and he's pretty much the only person in the world who has this. This is like the moment in this profession you live for, and the stakes are the highest. Everybody's watching. You believe in what you're doing. It's not just, you actually believe the client is innocent, is getting railroaded, and you're really good at this. You've done this before, and you get to do this on the grand stage. Everyone's watching, and as lawyers, it's just incredible. So I can imagine how exciting at the same time this must be that he gets to do this.
It's his entire career has led him to this moment. It's like, and he's had a storied career, man. I mean, the guy's
he's had some pretty damn
massive cases, but like you said, like the way this thing all just came together, and to be in that moment, all the while
invested,
you still have the weight of the world, Karen Reed's liberty on your back. It's like people just don't get how fucking hard this job is. In defense attorneys specifically, like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders when we step into that of that courtroom in a summation where everything's at stake. And it's just, it's like you said, for lawyers and for lay people too. It's a sight to behold. It's like, I love that we get to watch this shit now streaming all the time. And it's like, I used to talk about, lawyers know that the real battles in all the cases are in all pre-trial shit, man. It's where we're determining what's coming in and what's staying out. That's where the real war is fought. And what you're seeing with the trial is the end result of all the fighting that took place beforehand. And I love that they show those now. Like there were forever. No one ever knew what was going on before we hit trials.
I know.
Like now it's commonplace. And I just love it. I love that people are able to see what it is that we really do, and how much work goes into trying a case like this, man. And it's, I'm excited for him.
Yeah. The range of emotions though is, I mean, obviously there's the excitement tonight. There's the doing it where you're just like, wow, this is happening.
Yeah.
And, the jury instructions, and then the case is in the can, as they say. It's now, and you go from the biggest high to, I just want to be dead. I don't
abject terror.
I mean, it's out of your hands, and now you're starting to think about, wacko jurors and this and that, and there's the feeling of helplessness when it's in the can. There's nothing you can do, and then if they get the right verdict, the euphoria again, and then if they get the right verdict. I mean, look, lawyers obviously on high-profile cases have a lot to say, and other people as well, after a favorable verdict. And the idea of what these people will have to say if it's a favorable verdict, and that includes Karen, who, as we see, is talking about this process, about the district attorney's office, about Brennan, about the judge probably, and just all of this other stuff. It will be fascinating.
Oh man.
Do you know if the statute of limitations expired for like a malicious prosecution, or it doesn't start until you get a verdict?
Yeah, it wouldn't start, but and I'm sure if they win, they'll think about all that stuff, but the standard is so high, and
I would suggest my client just relish in the win, and like, it's because it's so much. It's such an uphill battle, and it's.
Well, what's interesting for her though, and again, I don't know if this will be the case, but their defense, if believed and provable, is a walking 1983 suit. I mean, if you framed and evidence was planted, and
you got an inverted video, you've got lying, you do have some stuff in the record,
and a much lower burden.
Right.
And we'll figure out, and she still has a civil lawsuit where she's a defendant.
Right.
So, there's a lot going on there,
But no,
Yeah.
there can't be a claim. People are asking, can there be a claim against the Alberts? Not based on what we've seen. It would
not by Karen, like not as to
No.
John's family. I mean, Karen doesn't have any standing. I mean, that would have to
Right.
come from John's estate.
And there's not enough evidence for that.
None of that shit's happening. I keep trying to tell people. And the reality is, if she walks out of this thing,
it's over.
with an NG, it's done. Like no one's getting arrested, and the feds aren't charging in and charging anybody. It's over. It's done. There's never going to be any justice for John O'Keefe. And people might just have to kind of land on the proposition that maybe this was just a freak accident. It's just as viable as anything else.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Well, we'll see.
All right. Do you think we can convince you to come on for a little bit for Verdict Watch?
Yeah, I'm gonna hunt you down.
Hunt me down. I'm around.
I'll hunt you down. We'll hang on. Hopefully, it's not going on for days and days.
Contrary to the people on Twitter who the Twitter law graduates who comment me all the time, I do occasionally, more than occasionally, need to do things to keep the lights on and to stay 2 steps ahead of my creditors and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I mean, there's always time. Time management is not a problem for me. So.
Yeah. And my only advice to you about those Twitter lawyers is fuck them. I took so much shit about the Richard Allen stuff, and it's
I get along well with the Twitter lawyers. It's a double whammy. They don't like my opinion on this case, and they really don't like a particular, he who shall not be named client who had a very good day today.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
They do associate lawyers with clients, which is,
Always.
fascinating. It's fascinating. Yeah. They do love Hank Brennan, who represented Whitey Bulger, who is a, gangster, killer, thug, monster. And by the way, I don't blame him for that. I could care less. Lawyers are lawyers.
Yeah.
I applaud him. It's a great case if you're a lawyer.
100%. I mean, my dad represented Gacy. For fuck's sake, talking about a
Doesn't
mom.
get much worse than that. I mean,
that dude's as bad as they get, But it's, and I was a young kid when he was trying that case. So fortunately, my parents were divorced, so I didn't have to live in Chicago. I was living in Colorado when that case was getting tried. Oh yeah. It was a bad one. Well, hey man, I always love having you on. I love these conversations, man, and you've got an open invitation here, but I'll hunt you down because I'd love to get you on during. What happened, babe?
It's that back button thing that just takes you out. I was trying to highlight a comment.
All right, say goodbye to Mark and tell him how much we appreciate him.
We greatly appreciate you. Thank you for coming, and we will see you during Verdict Watch.
Yeah, I'll hunt you down, brother. Go get some sleep. You've probably been on streams for 8 hours straight. All right, brother. Be good.
Bye.
Thanks. Mark Bederow.
Hey, babe.
Yo.
Look at that.
Hey,
and look at that.
Hey, we did it. We did it. Thank you guys so much. It's so exciting. That's so exciting. I never would have guessed when we started. I really started the YouTube to promote the podcast, I'm like, yeah, we'll start a little YouTube channel, and it's been amazing. We've built an amazing community of just wonderful people that we all consider family. So thank you to you guys. You guys are the ones who made it all possible. Yes, we just sit here and yap, So all right, let's go through.
All right, Jen G says, have we seen the Josh Holland band? Came up in her feed as a local Illinois band.
I have not.
Maybe we'll have to check it out.
Definitely.
And Jen gifted 20, but then 5. So at least 25 new members.
Oh, thanks, Jen. We love you. Oh, family hugs.
Choppy and Need family hugs. You just gave them.
Chappy Kino. Thank you. Thank you. Family hugs to the new fam.
Camilla, thank you as well.
Appreciate you, Camilla.
I did Lazy L's question. I tried to incorporate, I was keeping an eye on the super, so I tried to incorporate them in the conversation so that we touched on a lot of these. AJ says, hey, Allie and Bob, I'm close to you. I think I'm from Elgin.
Super close.
State, but love you guys and Attorney Bederow. Free common read. What's your prediction with the jury? I have got to say not guilty.
They have to come back not guilty. They have if Alan pounds the concept of reasonable doubt and makes it so that they understand it, because it is very hard to define. It just is.
Yep. And I still think what I was saying about if you're back there coming up with possibilities, that's reasonable. And Stania Gorais, how would you say that?
Gories.
All right. So thanks for your generosity. We did bring up your question. Lydia,
your generosity.
are jurors allowed to take juror instructions with them when deliberating? Yeah, they do get those back there. I mean, in most states, I think they do.
They absolutely have them because they have the verdict slip back there too. So
right,
yeah, they'll have the instructions. Yeah, it's their literal instruction booklet.
Right. Analytical Blarney says it's an unaliving trial for crying out loud. Why is there a time limit on closing? This isn't civil court, period. It's about railroading.
Agreed.
And Yanetti's Flannel points out that trial 2 started on April Fool's and ends on Friday the 13th.
Ooh, eerie. Thank you, Yanetti's.
Sue, I put up your question. We addressed that. No wrongful death suit can be brought by Karen Reed because they were not married, and she's got no standing. She's got no standing.
Standing means that you don't have the ability to walk into a court and try a case because you don't have what they call standing. And if had she been his wife, then obviously, but John O'Keefe's estate could try, but
there's not a lot of evidence there.
No.
But maybe they find more. So Barbara says Hank's paralegal needs to move her seat right next to the podium. She's always making faces when the defense speak. Does the jury see it? So concerned for closing. I've never noticed it. I guess I'm not looking there. But if she is making faces with the size of that courtroom, I'd assume the jury sees it. So yeah, that's
and that's a legitimate concern. It's like when I heard from one of the witnesses in the Richard Allen trial, and like her talking about how like she thought Richard Allen's eyes were scary, and I'm like, wait, that's why you found him fucking guilty? Because the way it's like, I worry about everything that has to do with jurors. I worry about it all. I over worry.
Right. And Lazy L, we did address your question, and Bob said the same thing. He went back and checked. It wasn't mentioned in the first trial. No. We talked about why they didn't bring it in with Scorty Bello. None of us knew they existed until it was brought out with Crash Daddy. So, Kim is my lawyer. Why are the anti-free Karen Reed so obsessed with Karen Reed?
I don't know.
It's unexplainable.
I don't know. It's so like, why are they so obsessed that that they're cheerleading for the fucking government?
And in a case where there's so much like doubt, it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. It's like people hate the government. Like in the cops and the prosecutor are the government. Like, I mean, are there wonderful prosecutors? Yes, there are. Are there absolute monsters out in this world? 100%. And, we all want them to get their just desserts. And then there's cases like this
that you just blindly.
It's
blindly
crazy. It's crazy.
Miss Shorty, member for 12 months. Thanks for your generosity. Free Karen Reed.
Family hug.
Randy got his bachelor's in 4 years.
Hey, what a
gap. Also, them not calling culprits a lot says a lot more about Hank. So he's so ironically unlawful. They knew he would lie and rehab them all. And we kind of
think that's a great point. I think that's a great point. I actually made a very similar point to that after Barrows testified and Hank very adeptly cross-examined him. I'm like, that's what Hank's going to do with cops. And had he had the opportunity, that's the other part of the Proctor dilemma, is Hank would have been able to cross-examine him, which means he basically could have laid whatever story he wanted out in order to rehabilitate Proctor, and just had Proctor saying, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So that was a problem.
Big problem. My Lexus in Space says, can the court or the Commonwealth read the notes of the juries without them knowing? Well, they're sure as hell not allowed to, and they're not supposed to, and it's supposed to be under lock and key. Whether somebody creeps in and reads them, that who knows?
Yeah.
Stacy LeBruno says, I think Welcher is lying because he also said the ME report said there was no x-ray of the arm. And I remember what you're talking about there. What he said was like, well, the ME report doesn't say I took an X-ray. It just says there's no fracture to the arm, or there's, something like
Right.
that.
He
But yeah,
worded it carefully.
he did. He
did.
did. Miss Shorty says, love these amazing chats with Mr. Bederow. Thanks, Allie, Bob, Allie, Mark, Free, Karen, Reed.
Thanks, Miss Shorty.
Amaya Inez.
I want to say Amy.
Oh,
Amy.
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 Inez.
Amy Anais.
Inez.
How
Okay,
bad are we
sorry.
fucking your name up?
Sorry, we apologize. After hitting Rescue Randy at 24 miles per hour, Aperture saw the damage to the Lexus and significant injuries in Arca's report, and not a coincidence, pivoted to 8 miles per hour since the taillight had minimal damage at 10 miles per hour. I mean, that was bizarre. They're up there and they're like 20 some miles an hour. I didn't say that.
Right.
Like, what? No,
right.
Huh?
We don't know what the speed was. We have no idea.
Well, that's what the Commonwealth is saying. Sylvia says, thanks, Defense Diary and Bederow, for your positivity. Free Karen Reed, free Turtle Boy, and to hell with the evildoers.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Maloney Parker, member for 15 months. Let's go, Defense Diaries to 50,000 subs.
Woo! I want to see Melanie, not Maloney.
Oh, Melanie.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm
no,
wrong.
You're right. I should just let you read. Go.
I mean, Sean Becker, new member. Family hug. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you very much for becoming a member of the family. History and Homicide gifted 1 DD membership. Thank you, as always, History. Glad to see you in here tonight. We appreciate you always. Scooter, 54. I had an arm strike on my forearm a couple of days ago, and when I walked into a stationary object, not only are the scratch marks horizontal, it's bruised and it's excruciating.
Right.
I mean, it's fucking common sense, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scooter.
I did address Tasha's, so thank you.
Okay.
Mark was on.
You did. So Melanie Parker, thank you very much for gifting 1 DD podcast membership, and welcome to the fam, whoever the beneficiary of that was. Thank you very much. Decline, thank you for all your rants and explanations. I love you guys. We love you back, Decline. Thank you for your generosity. Amara, da Bears.
Baby.
We're coming. We're finally not going to suck. I can feel it in my bones. I say that every year, though. So, and I'm always crushed, year after year after year of being crushed.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Amara. Kelly Coran, $5 super.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Lindsay, we put yours up. We talked about that. But I did want to touch on something different, actually. So the Commonwealth, when they were like dropping, there was 2 different things. They were seeking to strike the first 2 alternatives on the elements of second degree. So second degree is that she intended to commit a crime. B was, I forget what B was. B was like that she intended something that caused the crime. And then C is, I guess we should probably just pull it up. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you know when we're going to pull it up? We'll pull it up tomorrow. After
right, they were striking like the 2 elements of 2 of the alternative possible ways that you can prove second degree murder. And the defense didn't want to agree to them being gone because that's not the way the instructions written. But there are also lesser includeds, as we did bring up and we did discuss with Mark while he was here, that the defense is asking for, and that's something the defense always has the right to ask for. Well, the evidence also proves a lesser included, so we want to give the jury that possibility, and that's always a very strategical decision to make for the reasons we said when we discussed this the first time. But thank you. Truth and transparency. Will the defense file with the bar for Hank's professional conduct?
I think it depends on the verdict. I think if they get a not guilty, they're going to be like, fuck it.
I think that Karen is filing a report with the bar no matter what.
Maybe. She can. Anybody can. Anybody can. Thanks, Lana. Melissa
started us to get us there.
Yeah, they're
begging the people. We only need 100 more.
Yeah, let's give Bob, Allie, and Mark something to celebrate. Only 500 subs needed, 50K. Bob and Allie work so hard for all of us. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Melissa. We
thank
appreciate
you.
it. And thank you guys for getting us over the hump. I don't even know
Yes.
what we're at, but it's exciting. It's exciting. Lady Dutch, don't forget about Kelly Dever. False memory.
Insane.
Never forget
Insane.
about Denver. That's what Hank called her. And I'm like, who the fuck is this Denver chick?
A Denver Dever.
Dever. You don't even know how to
Diver.
pronounce my name. Thank you so much, Lady Dutch.
I put this up.
Analytical Blarney, CW
before.
equals finger painting for $325,000 minimum. Thanks, Analytical.
Lazy L's coming back again. I tried to watch Vinny Politan's podcast earlier, but he had a lawyer on who said the experts crossed each other out. So that means he thinks Karen Reed is guilty. OMG.
I was supposed to be on Vinny tonight, and I opted out to hang with Mark. Like I was booked, and I texted her at like 10:30 once Mark told me he could be here, and I had to hit the booker up, and I'm like, can't make it. So I don't know who they put on, but
if he would have said a she, you would have had some explanations there, but it said the lawyer was a he. So Stacy, Hank walking in tomorrow with a Chloe lookalike.
Sitting on his lap during the closing, he's stroking the Chloe.
Melanie says, what if Lolly gives the closing? Yeah. And that would really show that they have said, you know what, Hank, it'd be like the what's his name's case, the Rust movie.
Alec Baldwin.
Yeah. I'm having my perimenopause frog fag brain fog moment.
Wow.
But like, they're like, you know what? We don't even want you to talk anymore.
Your cheeks are super flush.
I
too.
know.
What's going on?
That's my version of a hot flash. That's what I get.
It's nothing better when that happens live. You know
I text you guys in the group earlier. I'm like, oh, perimenopause heat flash cheeks.
Lacey, last trial, Allie only went once. He just went last. Right. And that's the way they do it.
And I forgot that because somebody mentioned that earlier. And I was like, no. They always get to go twice. So
yeah. And
they always get to go last is what
here in Illinois, it's they go first.
Every state I've done a trial in.
Yeah. And then they end. They get the last word per usual. Thank you, Stacy.
But they always end. So.
Yes. Julio, member 4 months. He's that guy. And nobody likes that guy. Agreed. He's that guy. Sweet Sue 16. Anything to be done legally about Hank's misconduct? I mean, they can file complaints with the disciplinary committee out
disciplinary bar, and they'll look into it. So.
Yeah, they will definitely look into it. The Goodmans, and remember, the thing is, it's very rare for disciplinary actions to be filed against prosecutors in general. Remember, Hank is not a prosecutor by trade. He's trying this case as a prosecutor. He's a defense attorney. Like, he's gonna, if Allie's right and Karen files, he's gonna have to answer for the shit that he's pulled here. After the shit you pulled here today.
And Lally too for the inverted video. That should have been, somebody should have had him written up for that.
100%. The Goodmans.
Thanks, Goodman.
One DD. Yeah, thank you very much.
And I put up Victoria's comment. We touched on that. Acquittal versus hung versus guilty. So thank you.
Thank you. Coup contra Canoni. The FBI never states whether an investigation starts, is active or closed. The media says it's closed. At Mark, percentage of the FBI pursues the Bryans. I'm going to go with close to 0.
And I think we brought this up with Mark.
Here's the thing that I keep seeing in the Twitter sphere. That, they closed the investigation. That means they didn't have shit. No, that doesn't mean that. What it means is that the feds are not in the business of losing. The federal government, when they go to trial, have a fucking lockdown, stone cold winning case.
And they weren't going after the culprits. They were going after the police for misconduct. That's what they were investigating.
Right. And they were basically the only reason they got the text messages to see if the cops were playing dirty in order to help them. And if they didn't find anything, had they found anything of substance in terms of smoking gun evidence that something had gone on in that house, I assure you we'd be the case wouldn't be closed in terms of their investigation, and they'd be looking into it. I just
turned it in.
realistically, like I'm telling you, I don't want anybody holding their breath that something's going to happen with McAlbert's if Karen walks out of that courtroom with a not guilty. Like everybody just kind of needs to prepare themselves, girder themselves for the fact that there's just never going to be any true justice for John O'Keefe. That's it.
Thanks, Kraken Studio. I forgot to look afterwards. I went and looked about the 50K. I was like, what? But I always love when you guys pay to tell people to give us likes. It's very sweet.
It's so sweet. Thank you, Kraken. $10. The drama in the first trial diluted the strength of the science. Agreed. In the retrial, the science is the singular issue, and one cannot ignore the RD and the science. Less fun trial, but more effective. I could not agree more. I've been screaming that for 2 years. Like, I've debated this with Allie. I'm like, fuck all that bullshit. To stick with the science. That's what's going to win the case. So yes. I'm 100% with you.
And Kraken, we did get those likes up. They were only up to 4.4, but
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Hey,
10,000.
Laura Riker, this conversation has got my attention 100%. Thank you. Well, thank you, Laura. We appreciate that. The virtual juror, did the $325K include expenses? Didn't include the car. It's a good question. But remember,
no, because they had to
sell the car and then they pass whatever the difference is once they sell it off to the government. So the taxpayers will be paying for whatever portion of that Lexus that there was loss on, which, as soon as you drive a car off the lot, it drops, it depreciates in value.
Yeah, and they've got to disclose that they were like driving it like crazy people, specking into shit.
Yeah, we're like going 2 miles per hour in reverse and blue man grouping shit. Kelly, thank you so much for being a new member. Family hug. We love that. We love that. The virtual juror, KV and KV versus Christopher Simons et al. Welcher excluded for unreliable methodology, yet Canoni allowed him without voir dire. Why? Also rebuttal question. So we obviously touched a lot on the rebuttal stuff.
Right. But this could have played into it because a lot of people have been pointing out to us about this case. And I don't know if it's this very case, but there was also one in Massachusetts where he was excluded for all of this. And that was going to be something that came up as well.
I think the Mass case came in, but she wouldn't allow that KV and KV case, if I remember correctly. And we the answer is we don't know. Like that shit's all fair game. When you're going after an expert, I mean, looking at their testimony in other cases or where they were proffered by one of the sides and they weren't let in. I mean, that's all fair game. I mean, that's how you attack their credibility. So I don't know what the answer was. It was typical Bev shit. That's the best answer I can give you.
Right.
Even though that's a lot like a Hank Brennan, like Ipsy Dixit type answer. I'm just saying shit. But I mean, what other answer can there be? I mean, she's made so many head scratching decisions in this case and rulings. You can't try to figure out what's going on in her head because it can't be figured out.
Boris, thanks for those 10
thank you so much, Boris. We appreciate you. Red's daughter. None of that matters. They're there to prove Karen's innocence, not to solve who committed the crime. He was not hit by a car, not guilty. Exactly. That shit.
And that's something I hope that they remind the jury during summation is that we don't, we don't have a burden.
We don't have to prove shit.
We don't have to solve the crime. It's not our job. We don't have
even though they took it upon themselves to actually prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she did not hit him with that vehicle. Like John's body was not struck by that vehicle. They actually proved that beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defense had no burden to do so. Right. So that's how I feel about that. Oh, Stanya, what about non-obvious points?
I put this up so that we could touch on it at the time as well.
Do you believe are so key and feel you absolutely need nailed during the summation? I think we got to that.
And I would want to add the little things that are huge, like the hydraulics.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the entire test that he showed you, not only did he himself say it doesn't mean a damn thing.
I mean, I thought Laposata handled off. I think she handled that like a champ too. Without even getting into the hydraulics, but just the injury on the eyelid, she's like,
No, it's
It's
not
like,
coming from
he's
that
like, I
thing.
would have seen a bruise, like a long bruise. It would have been over the bridge of his nose. None of that existed because it's gonna have to hit the nose. It has to hit the nose before it gets like there's no way that thing, that wing, isn't hitting the bridge of his nose. It's impossible.
It's got to be a lot of the science and the data. That's what the prosecution told you this was about, and that's what we made it about. And that's
I mean it is painful that Rentschler's PowerPoint didn't get in, because like that layover that he did with the arm injuries, where he did and he laid over
I think they could use it in summation, though.
I would think, I would hope, like, because that was such a powerful demonstrative. It was beautiful.
And the other thing I think they need to do is go through each one of the clips and be prepared to say a little something that undermines that clip.
Yeah,
I do.
I agree.
Thanks, Gen X girl.
We always love you, Gen X. You're awesome. Bethany, if he slipped and fell, there would have been signs of hypothermia. Since he didn't have any signs of hypothermia, or something must have happened inside the house.
Right, or inside the garage. And I forgot to ask, that's when I saw Bethany's comment, I meant to ask Mark, and I know you and I have discussed it, that why in the hell didn't Yannetti rephrase the question when he posed it to the private investigator and it was objected and stricken for leading? Is there concrete in there? Is there a ledge in there? Why didn't he rephrase the question and let the guy testify about what was in there? Because all that was stricken.
And to what Mark was talking about, if there's the right verdict in this thing, if we get the not guilty, like the conversations and the information that's going to come out after the fact in terms of what they may have dug up is going to be fascinating. And I'm talking about the defense.
Right.
You know, whatever, like what if there was something going on in that garage and they dug something up that like Bev just wouldn't let them get it in, we're going to hear about it. It's going to come out.
Right.
Julie Sriracha, yeah. AJ can make CW look terrible by bringing up X-ray and Welcher not having them. McCabe saw the Jeep and finished with the CW lying about the holes in the shirt. Agreed. Agreed. That'll be effective. Laura Riker, the reality is that Brennan has got bupkis. Zilch. Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed. Thank you, Laura. Dave, $3 super sticker. Appreciate you, brother. Freedom Ring. Did CW fill in all taillight pieces, or is there a gap? Didn't Jen McCabe refer to a mechanic at John O'Keefe's? Yes.
Yeah, that did happen. There is a gap. The gap is part of their argument for this broke in at John O'Keefe's at One Meadows. And that's why when they put back together all the pieces, they couldn't find that piece because it wasn't there when they got the car. And Jen McCabe did mention mechanic, and I wonder if that will make. I wonder if that will make the closing, because it does speak to, you know, something that happened with his car.
And you threw this one up. Thank you, Josh. I don't think the defense got the X-rays until ARCA's May 7th report, which would be insane.
Right.
ARCA got them from the feds. Dr. L said that she got them a few weeks ago. There is a Brady issue here, maybe.
Right. If there was, you would have expected the defense to bring it up and scream and yell about it, but there was a lot of stuff happening at side.
Right. And God forbid that the wrong verdict comes down, you'll hear about it then if they decide to retry.
Yeah, for fucking sure.
For sure. Nina Hartz. And thank you, by the way, Josh.
I put
my closing argument, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Chloe said, I bid him. Case closed.
Not guilty.
How sweet that would be. Oh, Kasha, thank you. 50,000 subs. Congrats. Yay. Exciting. Red's daughter. Reasonable doubt and apologies to the Chiefs for the loss of their son by somebody. The O'Keefe's for the loss of their son by somebody who was never investigated.
Right.
I mean, you have to feel terrible for that family. It's like I just I've never been about going after the O'Keefe family. It's like they had so much loss in such a short period of time. I feel so sad for that family, and it's sad. It's sad that John's not here anymore. Yannetti's flannel, and thank you, by the way. Yannetti's flannel, happy 50,000 subs. You deserve it. What a great night to get it. On April 3rd, on Friday the 13th. and she will be free on the 4th of July. Woo! That'll be a hell of a long. Oh, you mean she'll be free by then? I hope the deliberations don't go to the 4th.
Right. She'll be free on the 4th of July, but
Right.
not
Yeah.
on the 4th of July.
Independence Day, baby. Thank you so much. Jen, $20, 50,000 subs. Thank you. Jen, we love you. Thank you for your just constant generosity. Lady Justice, $5 hollow. We appreciate you. Coming back. Love you guys. Congrats on 50K. Thank you so much. Bethany, I think you put this one up. How can a jury acquit Casey Anthony but be hung up on Karen Reed? Make it make sense. Free
No.
Karen Reed. How can you? You can't make sense with anything in this crazy world, and you can't make sense with anything. Like one case in one trial in one courtroom has nothing to do with the other. It's like, I get clients, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's like my buddy's lawyer did this in a case where I'm like, okay, well, that has nothing to fucking do with your case, buddy. So I'm happy for your buddy though. I'm happy you got acquitted.
Legal onlooker.
Legal onlooker. Do you think if there had been a fair, unbiased judge that this case wouldn't stand a chance? Her rulings were one-sided, complete BS. I think it would have helped. But
Right.
I mean, look, the reality is
She did make a lot of good decisions, but she made a lot of bad ones.
There is no doubt that she's biased, and why I have no fucking clue. I really don't understand it. Like
No.
when I'm watching her watch Rentschler, I'm like, or
seems like
I'm like, what are you thinking, Kanoni? Or like, is it like coming to you now that this is all bullshit?
But I think not, because then at the jury conference, she still thinks that somehow Karen Reed driving her car away from a house she doesn't live at is consciousness of guilt. And a fair inference. Inference. He should be allowed to argue.
Because most judges, if you ask almost every lawyer, are usually stateside judges. It's just, defense attorneys were accustomed to it. So I think we're probably a little more, guarded against, thinking immediately that somebody's biased, because they always seem like they're biased. Like we always lose.
Right. But there's a level of bias, and this level is
next level.
Noteworthy.
This
All
is
right.
next
Sarah
level.
says, does the defense not want to take lessers out so the Commonwealth can never come back to try and charge her on the lessers? Makes sense. Well, I can see why it makes sense from a layman perspective. However, double jeopardy does attach to any lesser included offenses. So that's not the reason why, but I definitely can see why you might think so. And that was astute observation. Red's daughter again. And don't forget, jury, I put this up. Jurors are people. They know bullshit when they see it, and they don't want to be stuck in the gutter with Brennan.
Let's hope that's
Brennan's going to show he's already shown his hand, and he's going to say something that just those jurors are like, you just fucking tried.
Well, the hope is that ultimately they're going to realize that Brennan tried to fucking hoodwink them.
Right.
Like that's the thing. Like they're like, and I hope Alan touches on it that the Commonwealth tried to fucking hoodwink you.
Yes.
That whole hoodie thing, that was an attempted hoodwink. He tried to pull one over on you. Make no doubt about it. And if he doesn't say it in those terms, I hope that the jury, right, he's got to imply it, and they have to be able to take that back there and say, you know what? Dude's right. The guy tried to pull one over our eye. Like, how can we trust anything he says? Because he pulled so much shit during this trial. Let's just hope against hope that and all it takes is one juror back there to be like, all right, well,
guys, he lied to us.
Right.
He tried to trick us.
Right.
And it doesn't sound. And they tried it at the last trial with this inverted video thing. So this is a pattern.
Right. Snooze. What the heck was the point of having the proctor text admitted, but having Brennan read them? How are they going to benefit from that in closing?
Well, they're going to be able to show his bias. They're going to be able to talk about his bias. This was the lead investigator. He decided from day one, from the jump, that this girl did it. And then he said all these awful things about her, and he steered the investigation. He did all the things.
And as far as Brennan doing it, he was trying to get in front of it. You know what I mean? It was like that was one of the only instances of like what Lally did in the first trial, where he tried to get in front of all of the third-party culprit shit by calling all of those witnesses.
I don't know what their plan was, though. If Brennan hadn't read it, when was their plan to put it in? That's what I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm dying to hear from the defense, when this is all said and done, like strategy session type shit. Like, I'm going to do everything in my power to get a couple of those guys on.
Yeah,
I'd love. Are you doubting me?
No.
You
Lawrence
shouldn't.
Spence.
You shouldn't.
I'm from Scotland. In our system, we have 3 verdicts. We've heard this. No jury instructions, either guilty, not guilty, or not proven. I thought we heard like
it was history and homicides told us this exact same thing.
Or was it guilty, not guilty? And
I love that system. I think that's an awesome system, because it's like what I'm always saying. If Karen walks out with the not guilty, the mouth breathing troll, anti-free Karen Reed people are still going to think she hit him. Like nothing's ever changing their mind. They don't give a shit.
I think it's a good system. If not guilty in that system, which I think it is, equates to innocent, and not proven is our equivalent to not guilty. Like they didn't prove the case. You're muted, babe.
Sorry, I coughed.
Damn it. Could have played the
jury 1 wasn't asked if they agree with the verdict, but will they now? I would hope so. if there's a stalemate back there, I would hope so.
This is what we have for when Bob usually mutes himself.
Bob, you're muted.
Which is a lot. I talk while muted quite a bit. Thank you so much, Kat. Nicole Kelly. I would watch Welcher pull up the medical exam folder when he was annoying as fuck on his computer for the x-rays. Yeah. Exactly. It was super annoying. I was happy to see that Rentschler had his up there, though. In
a much less annoying fashion, though.
Yeah, way less annoying. I love him so much. He was like, as much as I loved Laposata, I was like, I loved Rentschler so much. He was just batting like Hank, like a bear with a bunny. Boop, 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 boop. So good. Nurse Deb, Norfolk County, loves Mr. Bederow. Indeed. I think a lot of people love Mark. Thank you so much. You all right, babe?
Yep.
Meg Tomlinson, $20 holla. God, as a criminal defense attorney, I love this channel. Spot on. Love. Go AJ. Thank you so much, Megan. We appreciate you so much. And we love that we have lawyers out there that
sorry, didn't see this one before Mark left. Chloe was asking what Mark thought about Brennan being on the Zoom for Aiden's trial. For Turtle Boy. That's just like he's just as
he's like such a
Couldn't he have just walked over? Or I guess he's not in the building anymore. Sat in the courtroom, for God's sakes. He's
Red's daughter. Yay for Turtle Boy, and thank you, Chloe's mom. Big day for Aiden. Like at first I thought it was like the big one. And then I found out it was the
insemination trial.
I thought that one was like
but it was just the violation of a restraining order.
The Gaetano one. Still, a win is a win is a win.
Yeah, and that's what they went with that first because they thought that was the easier one to win. You know that. That's why the Commonwealth went with that first, because they thought it was the easier one to win.
Yeah, 100%.
And they got it handed.
Because they elect. So. And they might not even be in the same county though. DB, one of our wrenches, $10 holla. Congrats on 50K, I guess. Thanks,
right, because
DB.
it's not 100. So I agree with you, DB.
Thanks, DB. Appreciate it, brother. Technically, Hank is a weasel. What is your take on the defense agreeing to an OUI charge? Concerns me because 2.5 years possible jail.
Wait, when did the defense agree to an OUI charge?
I don't know. I didn't catch that. Is that something that happened today? Give us more technically. Thank you for that. We'll find out. I'll know by tomorrow.
Chat to see if technically chimes in.
M Medina, I subscribed tonight. I had to. Great show, 50K. Aw, thanks. Man.
She helped us get over the hump. I'm really convinced that once you hit 50K, it's that much easier.
It's good. It's a good number. It's a nice landmark for sure. Jen the Engine, congrats on your first 50K. Love you guys. Free Karen Reed. Thank you.
I just saw someone say, "Oh, Defense Diaries podcast. Melanie got her 100 plaque today.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Fancy.
All right, nice.
Yeah, we're lining something up. I don't know if we landed on what day. We're gonna do something with both Melanie and I think and Andrea, both, but separately on 2 different days. We'll
Or
let
on
you
the
guys
same
know.
day, we're gonna have people bouncing in and out. Hopefully,
Yeah.
Mark, as I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
tried to pressure him into doing.
He doesn't take much pressure.
I
He
know.
likes
I know.
hanging over here. Thank you, Jen. Amore of Alessi. I mean, how much do you love Bob? Bob bless, he's so great.
Bob
Thank you
loves
so
Bob
much.
too.
I do love Bob. Dr. J, member for 1 month. Oh, family hug. Is it possible the entire town's corrupt?
I
Of course.
mean, we've seen a lot of it.
Indeed. Indeed.
It stinks to high holy heaven over there.
Thanks, Doctor. Sholin, congrats on 50K from Australia. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that so much. Kristen from Manhattan, when a decision is reached, what is the conversation that you have with your client before it is delivered? Are you talking about
When the verdict is coming in?
Yeah.
God, most of our cases, our clients are in custody.
Yeah, but it's like if
some of them they're out.
I mean, you have to prepare them for the worst.
Yeah, we always tell them we don't know anything. You know, sometimes we'll give them, depending on who it is and like what kind of personality they have and how close we are, like our.
Yeah, I mean, you're going in with a positive attitude, like we feel very confident about this, and we think it's going to go our way, but because you can't ignore the other.
I like to prepare them for the worst and hope for the best.
100%. That's the best way to do it. Can't go in there like there's no way we're going to lose this. It's not true. Lulu, what do you think will happen with Bev after this? Nothing.
No.
Not a goddamn thing. Not a goddamn thing.
No, it's way less egregious than what was happening.
I'm hoping what she does is retire.
It was way less egregious than what was happening in Richard Allen's case.
Yeah.
With the judge, and
nothing happened. Nothing. NH Dude 603, when Karen is found not guilty, will you both join me for a meal of my food, my treat at the Weber Grill? Fuck yeah, I will.
You just promised. You just said you will.
I love the people.
I hope NH Dude 63
Weber Grill. I mean,
is
clearly you're talking about the Weber Grill over in like Elmhurst, right? Yeah. Fuck yeah. Hit me up.
One in Chicago.
DH for the pod. Love you, buddy. What a good wrench. Sarah, join us for closings tomorrow, 8:45. Thank you, Sarah, for promoting. Always appreciate that. Sky Goddess, $5 holla. Thank you, Bob, Allie, and Mark. Free Karen Reed. Indeed. Thank you, Sky.
Did we start early this morning? Oh, that's
Coup contra Canoni. Everybody with the German Shepherd show up tomorrow.
So no, but just remember what aspiring court reporter just said. We are starting early tomorrow because Canoni said she wants everyone early. So we're starting at least at 7:45.
What time did she say that the
lawyers there at 8:30 Eastern time, jurors there by 8:45, and she wants to start sometime between 8:45 and 9.
Boom. Let's go.
We're going to start at 8:45 tomorrow.
Well, it's 7:45 for us. Yeah, Amanda Hubbard, and thank you, Koo. Amanda Hubbard, with the confusion last year over the verdict form, does Jackson spend time walking through it?
Yes. Sure shit should.
Absolutely. I would be stunned if they didn't. And she said she's going to make it abundantly clear.
Yeah, but it didn't sound like so clear that she gives a not guilty and a guilty option for every one of them.
She's like, my form was fine, and the appellate court backed me on it.
But I'm still going to make it crystal clear.
Right.
So
Sandy Jeans.
We'll see what that means.
Can any lawyer report to
get a highlighter.
Can any lawyer report to the disciplinary
bar
system? Yeah, I mean any lawyer, any citizen can. Anybody.
Yeah. But you need to know, like, I don't know.
They have more impact if you if you have like an inside knowledge of shit that went on. Like former clients do it with lawyers all the time if they're happy, because it's like
family members.
Like in the law game, there's always a loser, typically and when people lose, they blame their lawyers. So lawyers have to deal with that shit all the time. It's just facts. Schnick Floyd gifted 5DD podcast memberships. Thank you,
Thank you.
Schnick. And I love saying Schnick. EKG. When Hank Brennan overstates, misstates, brings facts not in evidence, and just lies during closing, should AJ object each time or just let it go? AJ can't spend his time correcting Hank Brennan, but can't look petty by constant objections. I agree.
So
You know, I mean, it's
typically
got to
we
be some
say like,
egregious shit.
don't object during a closing, don't object during an opening. I mean, like Bob and I are pretty big on that. But I have to say, if Hank's fucking misstating evidence I think they need to object for the record. There has been some lack of objecting. The judge keeps saying, well, you guys didn't object and you guys didn't object and you guys didn't object. I think they might need to object.
I agree.
So,
I mean, you got to preserve the record.
but I mean, your point is accurate. Usually you would say it looks pretty petty to keep objecting and blah, 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 blah. But you know what? With this guy,
This guy,
fucking guy.
Amora Valesi, excited for gifted membership. Yay. My hub's a
right.
Chicago native. Awesome. And
And an
attorney.
attorney.
Love you too. Go Cubs, go.
Go White
Indeed.
Sox.
Nah, fuck the Sox.
I don't care.
I've divorced them. They're shit. They shouldn't even be in the league anymore. They need to be playing minor league ball. I'm all about the Cubs. Let's go. JD, loved the trio again tonight. My Tumu. Oh, your tummy is a knots for tomorrow.
We're here for you. We're here.
It's nerve wracking. Yeah. Come through tomorrow. You know, we got your back. Thank you so much, JD. Amy Inez. You think I'm just butchering that? Crash Dad is reading Wenschler's Blooming Crew report for the first time. Wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
Been fucking hilarious.
It sounds like they were just baffled.
Just to be a fly on the wall for that. Oh my God. Yeah, it's like how amazing would it have been to like heard the first phone call between like Wolf and Rentschler once they got off the sequestration order, be like, that fucking guy who's such a fucking douchebag. Yeah, see, I mean, that's just unbelievable. Joe Pa, just for fun, let's say the O'Keefes do sue the Alberts. Would their best defense be that he was hit by a car or drunkenly fell and hit his head?
Right. Either one.
Either one. Either one.
I mean, there's still this possibility that one of them all hit him, and then they made this thing up about a snowplow, but then moved him to the center of the yard. I mean, it just makes no sense.
It doesn't. Churicity. What did they decide the additional charge of the jury would be about the shirt? I forget.
I think the judge didn't decide yet.
Yeah, I don't think
Did
she
I
made
hop
it.
off?
No, I don't think she made a ruling on it. I think we'll hear about it in the morning. Hopefully, Tracy, I think last trial was able to get her hands on the final instructions that were landed on. So hopefully we can get those while that's going down.
The defense asked for the OWI charge.
Thank you.
As a lesser included. I think, is that what Carrie Deal's going back to the other person's comment about the defense agreeing to OWI? So not agreeing like that
pleading out.
Plead, right. But asking for it to be, yeah, that's one of the lesser included the defense asked for that the prosecution wasn't even asking for.
I didn't hear it, and it was super hard to hear what the hell they were saying today.
Well, they weren't necessarily. Yeah, I don't know. We might have seen that if we pulled up the printed jury instructions. I mean, so we were saying strategic thing.
Allie and Bob heard I made the wheel. Yeah, you won the wheel. Giggle.
Yep.
Driving to Tampa tomorrow for daughter's pre-wedding stuff next month, and I'd be too nervous, emo, to come on. Next one, love you. Okay, here's what you do, Giggle.
Gift it.
Gift it to somebody.
And we'll still let you come back another time.
Yeah,
pick somebody tomorrow. Let us know who it is.
Warm, and we'll make you super comfortable. Pick somebody
just
tomorrow.
So you guys all know out there, during Verdict Watch, we will be having you, the listeners, on. Glimmer, she won her spot, and that she's going to gift to someone else. And then we're going to have a certain donation amount that gets you 15 minutes on during Verdict Watch.
Indeed.
And that could be on with one of our guests. That could be on with us alone. You can pick a time. So
yeah, don't be scared, Giggle. That'll
be happening. That'll be happening tomorrow. figure out how much it is. It's probably $50.
Nicole
$50
Kelly,
gets you 15 minutes on.
$2 holla. Brennan, Lally, and McLaughlin are Morrissey's henchmen. No question. No question. The lackeys. Becky Mack, thank you. Congrats on 50K. 722 is 227, but inverted. Clever. Free Karen Reed and this fuckery. Not guilty. Justice for John starts with that. Agreed. Let's get there. Let's get that done first. Let's get that little piece done. Thank you so much, Becky. Carrie Deal, do you think anywhere else would throw this case out? I mean, who knows?
I mean, we saw it in the Rust case when the prosecution went
that
too
was
far.
super rare. It was super rare.
It is very rare. It is very rare.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Zoe B, FBI Operation Greylord. Boom. Yep. Proved corruption can run deep in courts. Greylord was a big fucking shit show here. Changed how the courts operate. Like, if you guys don't know anything about Greylord, I mean, basically judges were getting greased palms to like kick traffic cases, all kinds of shit. It's like judges were on the take in Chicago. Chicago is notorious for being corrupt as shit.
They're all the big cities are corrupt.
That was back when the old man was really in his prime too, over at 26 and Cal. Julia 543, and thank you so much, by the way, Zoe. Go Cubs, go! Chicago area meetup sometime soon. Absolutely, I'm gonna definitely make that happen. I'll pick a spot and I'll promote it ahead of time. We'd love to see you guys out in Chicago if you're in the area. And thank you so much. So much corruption. I was attacked by my dog and had injuries on my arm that looked like John O'Keefe's. Great job, by the way.
You forgot to put it up there.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh, so much corruption. Oh, sorry. I thought I had it up there.
I think that people are just that's got to be something they see when they look at it. It's just,
I mean, dude, what else could it be? Sure the fuck isn't a tail light injury. Charicity. Maybe that's why I forgot. It's probably why you forgot, because it didn't happen. Thank you so much. Carrie Deal, yes, they asked, watch with Melanie. We had to go back because the audio was terrible, but the defense asked for it, and she's talking about the OUI. I don't know if it was ruled on yet. Yeah, I don't know either.
I thought she said if the defense wants lesser included, that they get it,
Yeah. And thank you so much, Carrie. And then Amy Bonner. Oh, family hug. Welcome to the family. And then finally, Ellen XP, 10 pounds British. Allie, where are you from? I'm in D&G and it's 4 a.m. Just discovered you.
I am from the Philadelphia area, but I have lived here
in the Chicagoland area
for 20 years.
Long time.
Plus
a long time. You're a Chicago girl in my heart. That's where you're at. All right, y'all. It's been awesome. Mark was awesome once again. We had a great crowd in here. We're
Please
so grateful.
Join us tomorrow. At least bounce in around with us. Switch your notifications on, so that when we go live with Verdict Watch, because we're gonna have Mark on. We're gonna have other people on. Bob, you're still supposed to reach out to some people. I reached out to Andrea and Melanie.
Yeah, I'll try Peter, Ian, all my LawTube buddies. We love you guys so much. Mods, thank you so much for your double duty today, for your incredible work during this entire trial. It's a lot, it's a lot for us as hosts. We were doing it on the road. We did it like rain or shine. We were here streaming this trial. We couldn't have done it without our mods. You guys are amazing. No. Mandy and Tracy, we adore you. All of you mods, we adore all of you.
Carrie Deal,
channel doesn't exist. Thank you guys for helping us.
Got one last one from Carrie Deal. My Aussie name is Rizzo after Anthony Rizzo.
Hey,
2016.
Former great Cub.
But yes, thank you, mods. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you, Tracy. We love you all. Thank you all for getting us over the 50,000.
Yes.
When you leave, don't forget, just hit the thumbs up. It's free.
Oh, thanks, Lana. Yeah, 50K. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah. We're excited about it. You guys are amazing. Thank you a million times over for number one, helping us build this community, and number two, getting us over the hump on 50. And we hope it's just the beginning. We think we put some pretty good content out there, and we love the community we built and you guys are that. You're the heart, the backbone of it all. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Hey, if you watch on replay, leave a comment. Let's get Mark's interview out to the world in the algo. It helps if you leave a comment. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Please, please, please. It really helps us. It's a free thing you could do, and it really helps the channel. So we thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts. We love you. We love you. Love you. Because without you, I'm just an old man.
Sitting around talking to his wife.
Indeed. See you tomorrow.
awTube.